Okay, we are live. Thank you everyone for waiting. We were having a little bit of technical difficulty that I didn't know how to help because I'm not technical, but we are here. So everyone, welcome. Thank you for waiting. Thank you for showing up. And I want to quickly, so that we can get started, because we did get quite a few questions. We have HG here for an hour and a half. So we want to get in as many questions as we can. Please, people in the chat, be polite. No fighting. Mods, if there is any people coming in here to cause problems, just please boot them out. This is a serious topic and we're not here for play. Okay, so I'm going to introduce HG Tudor. HG is a narcissist psychopath who writes and talks extensively about narcissism and assists people in understanding how many of his kind function, and of course, how to avoid his kind. He runs a blog, narcsite.com. He has several social media platforms, and he's written over 50 books on the subject. And just so you all know, I put the links to everything in my description. So once the broadcast is over, if you want to look back and you want to go to his site, I find it very interesting. He answers a lot of questions on his blog. I've listened to some of his videos to get to know a little bit about him. He's very interesting. And he has 50 books that you can buy on Amazon. And I know we have a lot of people in here who have been in narcissistic relationships, have had narcissistic parents, who are trying to heal from the relationships that they've been in. And I think this can be a very big help. So, good evening, HG.
Good evening, Diane. Thank you for your patience and everybody else who's listening.
Okay, and I appreciate that you were able to make it here tonight for us. And also, I am sorry that we had that little problem with getting you on here. I was panicking. Again, I have to say it out loud so everyone in the chat knows me, that I'm very high strung.
It's quite all right.
Okay.
We're here now. That's all that matters.
All right. So I'm just going to start reading some questions that our subscribers have asked, and let's get going. All right.
Okay.
The first question is, can a narcissist be married to another narcissist, and how will that relationship go?
Yes, two narcissists can collide in such a situation as that. How will a relationship pan out? Well, it very much depends upon the school of narcissists that are involved. For those who are probably unfamiliar with my work, I categorize narcissists into three schools: lesser, mid-range, greater. There's a lot of information about those, but very briefly, lesser and mid-range narcissists don't know what they are, will never know what they are, and can't change. Greater narcissists have self-awareness and see no motivation for change because they are highly successful at what they do. So if you had, say, two lesser narcissists who marry, because what is central to the narcissist existence is control, they would both inadvertently be seeking to control one another without realizing that's what they're trying to do. And of course, because they are resistant to being controlled, what will happen is Narcissist A would take certain action which would affect the control of Narcissist B and vice versa. So you'd essentially have a chaotic relationship. Where you might have a greater narcissist that marries a mid-range narcissist, there can be a harnessing of the behaviors whereby there will be some chaotic behaviors, but the greater having that self-awareness will harness the mid-range narcissist for particular purposes. And in such an instance, the mid-range narcissist, although fighting against control, would also benefit from the status and kudos that comes from the association with the greater narcissist. Now, a good example of that are the Clintons, Hillary and Bill. He's greater, she's mid-range.
Oh my.
So Bill, very charismatic individual, self-aware, and of course, we all know that he's got up to various things behind Hillary's back.
Yeah.
She won't know about some of those things. She will tolerate some of those things because she will recognize that she has a benefit from her continued involvement with Bill. So there is, in a sense, an uneasy standoff that occurs. With other types of narcissist, it's chaotic and the marriage will collapse and fall apart. So generally speaking, because 99.99% of narcissists are either lesser or mid-range, so the vast majority of narcissists are lesser or mid-range. Greaters are very rare. Where they collide, it will be a chaotic and difficult marriage, which will ultimately fall apart at some juncture.
Okay. I did want to ask you, you said that you were a narcissist psychopath. Can you explain that a little bit more in detail? Because I know what a narcissist is somewhat, but there is a big difference between a narcissist and a psychopath. So what exactly does that mean for you as a person?
It means that I am a blend of narcissistic personality disorder and antisocial personality disorder. Being a narcissistic psychopath, I have a need for control over people that the narcissist has. My psychopathy means that I don't have fear and that I'm single-minded and driven. Both types don't have any compassion, don't have any remorse, and don't have any emotional empathy. If I was solely a psychopath, I wouldn't have a need for control and fuel. If I was solely a narcissist, I would still experience some degree of fear. And being a combination of the two is as I've just described, so that I have to have control over people that come within what I call my fuel matrix. But because of my psychopathy, and I have a higher executive function, it means I'm particularly Machiavellian, and I am entertained as a consequence of the manipulations that I engage in with people. But I don't have the experience of fear that a narcissist that does not have psychopathy has. So, for instance, a mid-range narcissist who doesn't have any psychopathy not only has an underlying unconscious fear of the loss of control, but would also fear taking a beating off somebody. I don't have that fear. So that, in essence, is the distinction.
Okay. Now, you did say that you were forced into treatment. So you're in treatment now, but you know, as a narcissist, that you can't be fixed. In other words, you know that. So are you in treatment and manipulating your therapist?
Yes, I went along with that in order to reject the control that my family were trying to assert over me. They thought that by causing me to go into therapy, they were able to control me. I gave them that illusion of control by agreeing to do it for the purposes of preventing them from taking certain actions which would impinge upon my control of them, also to enable me to access certain information that I needed for other purposes. And I can't say any more about what that is, but merely that my involvement in this therapy enables me access to particular information. And thirdly, because I was interested in learning more about myself. And the danger is that if you put a greater narcissist, which I am, into therapy, all you do is make us more dangerous. Other narcissists, lesser narcissists, won't bother with it. They will say, there's nothing wrong with me. I don't need to go into therapy. Mid-range narcissists will either reject it or go along with it, but will utilize it as a means of doing it for a short period of time. And then they will say to the victim, well, I've been in therapy and they said there was nothing wrong with me. And sometimes that's a lie, but patient confidentiality means that it can't be disproven. Or often the mid-range narcissist will con the therapist into thinking that either there's no issue there, or even making it seem that the real victim is the problem. And so therapy is a complete waste of time for any type of narcissist, because it cannot be healed, it cannot be cured. It is an intrinsic part of what we are and can't be undone, because the vast majority of narcissists, I've explained, don't know what they are and therefore could never address it. And indeed, their narcissism steers them away from any threat to the existence of that narcissism. Greater narcissists see no purpose to be addressed by even looking at curing it, because it can't be, but would engage in the process to learn more and just become more effective.
Okay. I heard you say in one of your videos that you believe there are now more narcissists than ever. Um,
Yes.
Now, I wanted to ask you this question. What effect does a narcissistic parent, a mother
Mhm.
perhaps,
Mhm.
have on a child? And being a narcissist, is it a learned behavior or is it something that you think that people are born with?
Narcissism arises as a combination of two factors: a genetic predisposition towards narcissism allied with a lack of control environment. So you have the seed and the soil, and you have to have those two components. So you might have somebody who has a genetic predisposition towards narcissism because they've got a parent that's a narcissist, but they're not exposed to a lack of control environment. Why? There might be a non-narcissist parent intervenes more heavily, or a non-narcissist grandparent, for example, that prevents that lack of control environment from springing up. You have to have those two factors that come together. And a lack of control environment also can manifest in lots of different ways. So you have the classic examples of an abusive one or one of neglect, but it might be the child that has a gilded lifestyle, told that they're brilliant when they're not, given every advantage without actually having to ever achieve anything, and ultimately has no control over their environment. You also have what I call grade B syndrome. So that might be a situation where the child is always told, well, it's good, but not good enough. Run faster, jump higher, get better grades, be better, be better, be better. And that child, again, has no control. You have to have the two things that come together. Otherwise, a narcissist won't be created.
Okay. Okay. So I have another question here. What about when it comes to love? So narcissists don't really love anyone. Is that true? When you get into a relationship, it's more
Mm-hmm.
about yourself and fueling your desires.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, can you explain that a little bit more in depth for us about not being able to love and draw why do you find yourself drawn to certain women, or it could be the opposite, a woman
Mm-hmm.
being drawn into a man. What exactly are you doing when you get into a relationship with the opposite sex? What are narcissists doing?
Okay, well, there's a range of issues there. First of all, let's tackle love. Narcissists are incapable of love. Love is founded on emotional empathy. So that is, and I've learned this from my interactions with other people and watching and listening, that the manifestation of love is not harming the other person. It's being supportive, respecting them, recognizing their boundaries and their interests. Love is not standing beneath the balcony in the pouring rain singing Ave Maria. It is not getting down on bended knee in front of a packed basketball auditorium to propose marriage. It's not what's written in Hallmark cards. It's not buying lots of gifts. But all of those things are what my kind drive the narrative. So many of you listening will have pop songs, books, films, where you'll have taken your cues from in terms of what's deemed romantic. Much of that material has been generated by our kind and thus bleeds into the mainstream to cause people to think, well, love is that long romantic poem. Love is coming out with things such as, I would swim across an ocean for you. I'd do anything, I'd die for you. No, all of those things are just dressing. And love is a much more solid concept that is founded on emotional empathy. And we don't have it. Many narcissists think that they love because they don't know what they are. And what they are able to do is copy the manifestation of love. So it's very easy for someone to say, I love you, but much harder for them to demonstrate it in a way that utilizes emotional empathy. And of course, we can't do it because we don't have the emotional empathy. So we don't feel it in the way that you do. So for example, let's say I'm walking along the road and I see an old lady who's fallen down. Now, if you saw her, because you're not a narcissist, you have emotional empathy for that little old lady. And immediately you think, oh, she's fallen, she'll be hurt, she'll need help. and you rush across. In fact, you go across to it without even giving a second thought to it, because you would have that impulsive response to assist driven by your emotional empathy. I don't have that. But what I have is cognitive empathy. So I would recognize, the lady's fallen over, the expression on her face tells me that she's in pain. That therefore means that she would probably need some help. Shall I help her? If I deem it appropriate for me to help her because it would benefit me, I will. If I've got something better to do, I'd walk past her, because I have no conscience, no emotional empathy, no remorse, no guilt. So similarly, when it comes to love is not all of those flowery manifestations that I've just described, but it is founded on emotional empathy. Now, people who are empathic are not saints. They make mistakes. And they make mistakes primarily because their emotional empathy can be eroded as a consequence of an external stressor. Bereavement, loneliness, fatigue, drink, drugs, but primarily abuse. So that's why you will get some people who think to themselves, well, I'm behaving like the narcissist. And all that's happening is, because you are a bundle of empathic and narcissistic traits, is that when you're being abused by our kind, your emotional empathy for your abuser reduces, and you may well fight back. And that's why you find yourself possibly acting in that way. If your emotional empathy was not eroded, you, as a matter of course, do not go around manipulating people, because it is not part of your skill set, but it is for the narcissist. So when it comes to love, we are incapable of it. But what we do is we con you, because we're very good at demonstrating the manifestations of what people think love actually is. And so people are duped.
So when you're in a relationship with a woman, let's say,
yes.
We're going to use you as an example. So this woman is in love with you, and she's telling you how much she loves you and adores you. And you're at that moment when you haven't come to the point where you want to disengage and get rid of that woman. You're just using that woman to fuel your narcissism, to fuel yourself. So it's all just a big game, right? For you.
You've got to distinguish between me as a self-aware narcissist and the majority of narcissists. And in a sense, it's better for me to talk about the majority, because that's who most people listening will have actually come across. Because many people make the mistake of thinking that the narcissist is aware of what he's doing and is calculating his behaviors. Most narcissists aren't. And people really struggle to grasp this concept. They struggle because they impose their own worldview on that of the narcissist. We have a completely different perspective to you. We see the same things, but we see them differently. So you see, there's no such thing as an objective reality. Everything that you smell, taste, hear, feel is an interpretation by your brain from external stimuli. So, simple example, you and I could both be looking at a car, and you could say, look, HG, look at that red sports car. And I go, yes, it's red. But my version of red is your version of yellow, but we see it the same way. But we see the same thing and describe it the same way, but see it differently rather. And the narcissism is similar. We see everything in terms of control at an unconscious level. So if I was to give you some spectacles which gave you narc vision, everything you would see would be a matrix of control, percentages of control. And every single act of the narcissist is either a benign manipulation, complimenting you, giving you some flowers, taking you to the cinema, taking you out for a nice meal, or a malign manipulation, the word salad, the triangulation, the physical abuse, sexual abuse, silent treatments, all of the various malign manipulations that people may have experienced or heard about or read about. And everything we say or do is a form of manipulation, because what is central to our existence is control. So when somebody comes along who is a romantic partner, our narcissism basically says this, if it had a voice: this person is an appliance that must be controlled. The best way of securing control over this person is to use love, sex, and intimacy, because those are weapons of mass seduction. And so we go in with this behavior, and the narcissist has an infatuation for this individual, because the narcissist is driven by this belief that you are the one. You're perfect, you're wonderful, because you're painted white. And so the narcissist has to secure control of you very quickly. Because remember, our existences are predicated on the need for control and fuel. Why? We were born out of a lack of control environment. So in the way that dogs will hear frequencies that we can't, we as narcissists are hypersensitive to the issue of control, where you as non-narcissists aren't. So when you do certain things, the narcissist's unconscious antennae picks up at it as a threat to control. So if somebody didn't speak to you, you shouted at them across the street and they didn't respond, you would probably think, oh, well, probably didn't hear me, and you'd go on about your day. Or you would think, well, that's rather rude of them. But no matter, they have their reasons. If you do that to a narcissist, you wound us. That's the worst thing that you can do to us, because you're not providing us with fuel, and your act of wounding us threatens our sense of control. We don't have control over you. And therefore, our instinctive response, where it is a lesser or mid-range narcissist, is control has to be asserted over you instantaneously. Why? Because narcissism is a self-defense mechanism. And in the same way that you are all listening to me now, none of you are saying, breathe in, breathe out, breathe in, breathe out, or telling your hearts to pump. They are unconscious actions going on in the background. Narcissism is exactly the same. And it's instantaneous, so that if that person ignores us, the narcissism, if it had a voice, would say something like this: major alert, appliance over there has ignored us. We must assert control over that individual. Best thing to do is, in this circumstance, is to insult them. So the narcissist will shout, oi, big nose, why are you ignoring me? Or something worse than that. And as soon as that person responds and goes, are you talking to me? There's a response. Their response is fuel. That signals to the narcissist that control is being gathered. And so the narcissist is then encouraged. So when you say to the narcissist, I love you, you're providing us with fuel, pure positive fuel. We feel in control of you. If you say to us, where have you been? You should have been here 4 hours ago. You're giving us fuel because your anger, your irritation is fuel. But you're threatening our control because you're suggesting we've done something wrong. And if you ignore us, or you don't reply to our telephone call, or you fail to respond to the text message, or you forget our birthday, that wounds us, and you make us feel powerless. Many people will find that quite extraordinary, but that's how it functions for a narcissist. But most of this is unconscious. And so the narcissist doesn't understand that he needs control. He just thinks you're a bad person and will articulate any reason, which ranges in levels of plausibility dependent upon the type of narcissist you're dealing with. So some narcissists can be very plausible. So they may give an explanation as to their behavior. And that's obviously when people find, well, I'm not really sure, and they start doubting themselves. Where they think, oh, he said to me that he was angry because I did this. And you think, did I do that? I'm not sure whether I did or not. In other instances, you know that you didn't. And you're thinking, why on earth is he accusing me of this? Now, most narcissists are not stood there laughing into their sleeve, thinking, I've just told her a barefaced lie. Ha, ha, ha. They actually believe that lie because their narcissism rewrites history and rewrites the narrative. So a narcissist will say, I told you this last week. And you go, no, you didn't. The narcissist genuinely believes in that moment that he did tell you that last week, because it's all about controlling you.
Okay, you just mentioned if someone forgets about your birthday. In one of your videos I was listening to, you say that narcissists on purpose will destroy all of your holidays, your birthday, everything. Why do they do that? Why do they do that?
Well, it all depends where you are in the dynamic. So to begin with, we come along by pouring sugar on you, as you know, to seduce you. Because if I walked up to a lady in the bar and said, hello, my name's H.G. Tudor, and I'm a narcissistic psychopath and I abuse people, she'd run away from me screaming. And that's no good. I've automatically lost control. So I'm interesting and charming and pleasant, etc. And so that's how narcissists bring you in. So to begin with, you're painted white. So everything about you is painted white. But then If you threaten our control in some way, which might be because you don't do what we want, or you inadvertently ignore us, or you ask a question which you think is innocent, but it is not from the perspective of the narcissist, you become painted black. And as people will recognize, you're either white or you're black. There's nothing in between. And so when you're painted black, everything associated with you is bad. So if you're painted black and it's your birthday, then we don't want to know about your birthday and it'll be spoiled because we have no emotional empathy for how it would make you feel. And control is the central thing that we have to have. When you're painted white, you get a magnificent birthday and you're the belle of the ball and we treat you really nicely. But partway through, you might do something which threatens our control. You become painted black and all of a sudden you turn around to see us kissing your sister, triangulating you. It was such a blatant act. So you get upset. Your act of being upset signals to us that we've got control over you again.
Oh.
And so it very much depends. You can be black, white, many times a day. So if you're painted white and it's your birthday, you will have a super birthday, unless something happens which causes you to be painted black. If you're painted black and it's your birthday, it'll be forgotten about, or it'll be ruined, or there'll be a scene. It all depends upon the type of narcissist that you're dealing with and how that narcissist manipulates. Lesser narcissists are like wrecking balls, physically violent, no awareness whatsoever, will just look at you when you're crying as if to say, what's the matter? Mid-range narcissists blend in better. They're more passive-aggressive. So they operate a facade. So they're less likely to punch you in front of a group of people, but they'll sit and sulk instead. And when they're asked what's wrong, their narcissism will fabricate a response which makes you feel like you've done something wrong. And so that you then have to fuss around the narcissist to cure the imaginary ill. But of course, in the world of the narcissist, you've offended the control. So the point is that your status of black or white, changes very often, and you will probably not even know what you've done to cause it because you don't have our perspective. What makes it doubly difficult is you are part of a fuel matrix, which means all the people that we interact with, be it the wife, friends, family, mistress, the man selling a hot dog on the corner of the street, are part of a narcissist fuel matrix who are drawn on at different levels of potency and frequency. And what happens with one appliance can impact upon you. So let's say you have a narcissist who is married. Initially, the wife was painted white, then her fuel becomes stale, so she's devalued. And the intimate partner primary source, which is my terminology for a long-term partner that you live with or you're married to, will always be devalued in the way that the sun will always rise in the east. Devaluation will come and visit you. And so when that person's devalued, the narcissist will start to look around for a replacement, not consciously, but unconsciously, and will have an affair. It might be a sexual one, it might be an emotional affair, or an intellectual one, or a financial one, but there'll be a form of infidelity involved. If that mistress is then painted white, if that mistress rejects the control of the narcissist in some way and then becomes painted black, the wife suddenly shifts to being painted white. And the narcissist is nice to her again. And she just thinks, oh, perhaps it's because I made him steak and chips this evening. It's his favorite meal. Everything's all right again. It's nothing to do with that. It's to do with events that she probably doesn't know about. And it's wheels within wheels. And this underpins the idea that basically when you realize what you're dealing with, stop it. Go no contact and get away. Because if you think that you can somehow try and manage us, you've got two fundamental problems. One, we are designed to be the controllers, not the controlled. You are trying to control something which is engineered to reject that control, designed and created that way. And secondly, because you don't necessarily know who's in our fuel matrix, and you don't know whether those people are painted black or white, and indeed you may not realize what you're painted, you're trying to do a jigsaw puzzle with several of the pieces missing. So there's two fundamental reasons you're on a fool's errand if you think you can manage a relationship with us. And that's why you should never attempt to do so and get away from it as quickly as you possibly can.
Okay, I have an interesting question from someone. It says, are narcissists beneficial to society, or should we all just ship them to an island with no contact with anyone other than other narcissists?
Well, most people who've been the victims of a narcissist would agree with the sentiment of that line them all up and shoot them, line up against the wall and shoot them, or ship us away to that island. Of course, two fundamental problems with that. The first is a practical one: spotting us. It's not as easy as people might think. But leaving that aside, do we serve a useful role? Yes. Many of you may well be accessing this on an Apple device, and that company was essentially founded by a narcissist, Steve Jobs. Many of the captains of industry, the pop stars that you listen to, the film stars that entertain you, the politicians who most people probably agree we could probably do without many of those, but many of the people, not all, but many of the people that get to these positions are narcissists. Now, there are a heck of a lot of narcissists who are absolutely no use at all to society. The criminals, the paedophiles, the whining baby office politician at work. But there's many narcissists who are very good at what they do because of that need for control. And so the narcissist is driven to invent, create, build up industries, build up businesses. So in a sense, if you have the misfortune to have one in your family or have an intimate relationship with one, that's a very difficult situation. But if you have an arm's length relationship through the provision of services and products and entertainment, much of that comes from narcissists. And in that instance, you actually benefit from our narcissism because of what it helps us achieve.
Okay, here's a very interesting question for you. And I would say this is for you personally. If you could take a pill and wake up the next day as a supernova empath, would you take that pill?
No. One, there's no such thing as a supernova empath. It's a super empath. Going supernova is an event. So just to clarify that, people do make that mistake.
Okay.
But that's fine. No, I wouldn't. I'm perfectly content with what I am.
Okay. Okay. Can a person who is not a narcissist manipulate the narcissist?
No. Going back to the point that I made earlier, you are attempting to control something that is not to be controlled. If you think that you've successfully manipulated a narcissist, one of three things has happened. One, you're a narcissist. Two, you have attempted to do so in circumstances where you're not a narcissist and your emotional empathy has been eroded, so you fight back, what I was talking about earlier. Or three, you think you've manipulated the narcissist, but you haven't. The narcissist has done it because the narcissist wanted to do it. Because if you secure an outcome that you want and the narcissist does so, it's only because the narcissist wants it as well. And you might be misled into thinking that you've achieved that. And if ultimately, does it really matter? No, because if you've got the outcome. But the problem is your prospects of successfully causing a narcissist to do something by attempted manipulation or persuasion are very low indeed, for the reasons I've explained. And the problem is that you as non-narcissists, you're not designed to manipulate. I do it through calculation and instinct. Most narcissists do it instinctively. You don't manipulate instinctively, which means you're not very good at it. So it's a little bit like, for example, a Premiership footballer. He is very good at football because he's instinctively and natural at what he does. He doesn't think about where he needs to be on the pitch, he just goes. His timing is superb. He knows how to strike the ball. He could tell you what to do, but because you'd have to think about it before you do it, you'd be too slow and you wouldn't be effective. So people who are not narcissists are not naturally manipulative because you don't need to be. It's not part of your self-defense mechanism. And if you think that you can manipulate a narcissist, get rid of that thought immediately, because you're being misled by your emotional thinking into continuing to interact with the narcissist. You, as non-narcissists, have bundles of empathic traits: honesty, decency, love, devotee, strong moral compass, truth seeker. You also have narcissistic traits: pride, envy, possibly infidelity, jealousy, anger. But your narcissistic traits are kept in check by your empathic traits. But sometimes, because your emotional empathy is eroded, those empathic traits recede like a tide going out, leaving the rocks of your narcissistic traits. And that's what can lead to you fighting back against the narcissist. So you might try and manipulate the narcissist, but you won't succeed. You might fight back and wound or challenge the narcissist and cause the narcissist to have to break off from you because you're repeatedly wounding the narcissist. But if you think that you can secure an outcome with the narcissist through manipulation, you can't. The only way that you can secure things is to use an external mechanism such as the law. So if the narcissist owes you money and you've got a good case, get a lawyer, get into court, get a judgment. If you want to sort it out with the narcissist with regard to dealing with children, get into court, get a court order and have that enforced. Do not think that you can persuade the narcissist. Do not think that you can threaten the narcissist, because all of your actions, even if you're doing something pleasant for the narcissist and something that you regard as constructive, and if you will, you're trying to manipulate us by pouring sugar on us, we instinctively recognize what you're doing. You're trying to control us, and therefore you are offending our core principle, and we must reject it.
In one of your videos, I was listening to the one where you were talking about disengaging with someone that you've been in a relationship, where you said things like, okay, so the woman goes to kiss you and you kiss her on the forehead, or you're lying in bed and you turn your back on her and she's thinking that it's spooning time. And so why do you go through all of those channels? Why not, if you're not happy anymore or you're not getting the fuel that you've been getting, why not just walk away? Why does a narcissist have to do that to a person? Like you even said, what you do as an analogy is like taking your head, putting it underwater. You're not going to drown them completely to death, but you're going to suck the life out of them as much as you can. Why not? Why can't a narcissist just walk away if they're no longer getting the fuel from that person?
Okay. Just to make a distinction, when you say not getting the fuel, I think what you actually mean to say is, why is it not as potent as it once was? Because this is an important distinction, Diane. The narcissist wants to get most of the fuel and control from one person. That's the primary source. So that's why most narcissists, not necessarily all, but most, and particularly less than mid-range, get a girlfriend, get a boyfriend, marry, have a partner, cohab, whatever you want to call it. So let's take a mid-range narcissist. 70% of his fuel and control comes from that primary source. They're very important. And also character traits and residual benefits, which are a couple of extra things in the prime aims. But let's just focus on fuel and control. So 70% comes from the primary source. Let's say 20% comes from 10 friends or family members, secondary sources. So they all provide roughly 2% each. And then the balance of 10 comes from 10 tertiary sources, strangers, acquaintances, all with 1% each. If the narcissist decides to get rid of that primary source, he suffers an immediate drop in his fuel by 70%. Okay? So when your positive fuel becomes stale, and it will, or when you're the primary source, you're not providing us with enough fuel in terms of amount or frequency, devaluation sets in. And it's a very valid question. Why not just jettison you at that point? Well, the problem is, everything has been hunky-dory up to that point. If we let you go as soon as you're painted black, we have a huge hole in our fuel matrix. So what we do is shift to devaluation instinctively for the majority of narcissists, so that the negative fuel that you give, your upset, your hurt, your anger, contrasts and is fresh to us once again. You give us a new lease of life through your misery, your pain, your hurt, and your anger. While you're in devaluation and you're painted black, this is when the narcissist starts the hunt for your replacement. Sometimes it doesn't happen immediately, but it will. Sometimes there is never a replacement, and so people are stuck. If they don't escape, they go through this cycle of respite period where they're painted white and the narcissist is pleasant to them again for an afternoon or 2 weeks or a few days, it varies, and then back into devaluation. And that's the roller coaster, the up, the down, the up, the down. And that can go on for decades. But commonly, when you become painted black, the narcissist starts the hunt for your replacement. And if one is found And that person who is an intimate partner secondary source, namely the mistress, the booty call, the chap on the side, the other man, the other woman, they, if they are catering for those prime aims, and the narcissist instinctively recognizes this, it's not done like some conscious checklist, they then get promoted to the primary source, and it is at that point we get rid of you, because it's like the continuous fueling of, say, a racing car. It's getting fuel from this one, that fuel reserve's about to run out, not a problem. We can take it from this one here straight away. It segues and it's seamless. So we don't get rid of you at the point of devaluation, because that would puncture a massive hole in the fuel matrix. We need to have a replacement lined up. And when we instinctively recognize that that replacement is good and solid, you're out, they're in, there's no hole. That 70% goes and is then immediately replaced by a new 70%. So that's why devaluation occurs. It's done to freshen up the dynamic from our perspective, so that your fuel remains potent and plentiful, but now it's negative fuel. And at this juncture, because you're painted black, your replacement can be sought for. And if they are found and brought under control, that is a disengagement trigger. Some people use the word discard, I prefer disengagement. And so you as the primary source, you're out and you're replaced by that new person. And that's why, if you're the victim of our kind and you're in that situation as the primary source, you suddenly realize he's moved on to her really quickly. How did that happen? Well, because she was waiting in the wings. Or you might know that the narcissist has been having an affair or cheating, and then that person replaces you. And of course, the replacement, when they become the primary source, they'll go through exactly what you've suffered. They'll get all of the wonderful stuff, all of the golden period of idealization, seduction, and then bang, into devaluation they will go. And if a replacement is found, they'll be disengaged from. And on it goes, and on it goes.
Okay, we have a lot of women who were in a narcissistic relationship, were married to a narcissist, and have children with them. So,
Yes.
Of course, the biggest thing for a person who's not a narcissist is to have no contact. But when you have children with that narcissist, it's difficult sometimes. So
Yes.
how do you suggest for the women or men, either way, to really have the no contact, even though you do have a child?
Okay. I always explain to people that the first golden rule of freedom is, once you know, you go, you get out, and you stay out. When you realize that person's a narcissist, you go. Now, there are many people who think, I can't do no contact for these reasons. Most of those reasons are invalid, and it's a product of emotional thinking conning you, or they're semi-valid. It's difficult but not insurmountable. And people give up because they think it can't be done. There are very few legitimate exceptions that exist to no contact. And one of them is the situation which relates to co-parenting. But it's not as wide within that co-parenting as people might think. If there is a court order which says you have to co-parent with the narcissist and interact with them in ways A, B, and C, you have to obey that court order. And so you are stuck with that situation until such time as you can utilize appropriate evidence, and often you can, to go back to court to change the terms of that order. But if there's a court order saying that you've got to have certain forms of interaction with the narcissist, you can't disobey the court order. However, we're a long way from that part at the beginning of the interaction. You realize that you're with a narcissist. So you leave, take kids with you, or kick him out or her out. Sometimes easier said than done, but it happens. The starting point is that you say no, they are not to have any interaction with the children. Now, I appreciate that in certain instances, there may be legal ramifications from that, and you should take appropriate legal advice. But on the basis of that, your interests and those of the child are best served by ensuring that the narcissist has nothing to do with any of you. You should first of all be striving to keep that narcissist away. Because if you're dealing with a lesser narcissist, he'll kick and scream to begin with. But eventually, if he can't engage with you because you've imposed a solid no contact regime, after a period of time, he'll lose interest, and he may not even try to go to court, and he'll just go off with the new floozy and leave you alone. Yes, he'll come back every once in a while to have a little sniff or a bite. But rather than fearing this narcissist, if you put in place a solid no contact regime, my work details how you do that and what no contact is, because most people don't actually understand what no contact is. And they mess it up because of the honest mistake caused by their emotional thinking. It's not to say that people are stupid, it's they are misled by misinformation and emotional thinking, because your emotional thinking wants you to keep interacting with the narcissist. So it takes you down a wrong road. So you can start off by saying, no, you're not seeing the kids. Don't like it, go to court. And if you've got the evidence and you go to court, and believe me, contrary to what people think, most narcissists are not Machiavellian supervillains living in hollowed out volcanoes going, blah, how can I make this person's life a misery? They're often quite useless individuals or haphazard, and they are focused on control in the now, which means they're not concerned with collateral consequences. So that's why you'll get a mid-range narcissist who keeps bringing stupid court applications which cause him to run out of money. You don't do that because you think, well, I'll lose if I do that and I'll have a cost order against me. He's not thinking about the future of the cost order. He's thinking about controlling you now. And if bringing that court application against you in the moment allows him rather to get control over you, he'll do it. And of course, later on when he's run out of money, his narcissism will just say, well, it's the bitch of my ex-wife who was so awkward in the divorce proceedings, because it's never our fault. What you can also do is, and utilize this either by imposing it first and seeing if the narcissist tries to fight against it, or have it embodied in a court order, is a whole range of options. And I have a specific assistance package called How to Co-Parent with the Narcissist, which is chock full of detail, which tells you exactly how to deal with these situations, setting up gatekeepers, minimizing the level of interaction, reducing your emotional thinking so you don't react to the provocations, explaining to you what those provocations are. So it is not the hopeless situation that many people think that it is. You are led into thinking that because of misinformation and because your emotional thinking basically says to you, I can't succeed here. He's just going to keep causing me problems, or she's such an issue for me that I'm never going to be able to resolve this situation. You can. And you can get to a point of near total no contact. And my material lasts for quite a long time that provides you with this information. So I'm loath really to go into the topic in any greater detail now, because I know there are other questions. But in essence, is to say this. Yes, it can be difficult, but it is not impossible. And I set out for you the ways that you can achieve that quite readily. And many of my clients, readers and listeners have utilized that material and have done so successfully, and it's relieved them of a huge burden.
Okay. I have another question. Are narcissists obsessed with looks and beauty? I heard you talking a little bit on another video about how, the selfies are, all over Instagram, and people taking pictures of themselves, and people are wondering, are those people narcissists, or are they just conceited, egocentrical? I don't know the difference. I can't say that someone who takes 1 million selfies of themselves are they're a narcissist. But are you obsessed, narcissist, with looks and beauty? Does it matter?
Some are. Well, more accurately, we are obsessed with the notion of control, because as I mentioned earlier, that is central to our existence. But most narcissists don't know that. How do we get control over you? Well, one way is to ensure that we are handsome, beautiful, ripped, buff, Botox to the hilt, lay on the makeup, dress stylishly, drive a flash car, eat in expensive places, and plaster it all over social media. Because if we sashay up to you and look absolutely stunning and gorgeous and then give you mind-blowing sex, what are we doing? We're controlling you because you fall for us. Some narcissists charm you. Some narcissists use their intellect to control you. Sex, looks, love, intimacy are used a lot, as I mentioned earlier. They're weapons of mass seduction. So at a superficial level, certain narcissists, somatic ones and elite ones, elites are a combination of cerebral and somatic, do have what would appear to be an obsession with their looks and their image. But what it really is a manifestation of utilizing those things to control victims. We must control you. So we will control you by being beautiful and handsome so that you fall for us, or very complimentary, really helpful, really supportive, or being fascinating, interesting characters that are well-traveled and well-read, or we're proficient musically. And some narcissists will create the veneer of those things, and it's superficial, but you don't penetrate it because your own addiction to narcissists, and empathic victims are addicted to us, and we're addicted to controlling you, means that you don't question it, you don't cross-examine these behaviors, you take it at face value. And so you're sucked in. So some narcissists will have an obsession with their looks, but it's actually one particular manifestation of the obsession with control. That's what's at the heart of everything. If baking chocolate cake was the best way of controlling our victims, we would be the world's best maker of chocolate cakes. Whatever it takes to control you, looks, intelligence, music, interest in films, we will utilize it. And different cadres, as I call them, of narcissists. So victim narcissists look for somebody to mother them, to take care of them, because there are some very caring empaths out there. Other narcissists are somatic, so it's all about the selfies. It's all about the naked chest shots, the bikini shots, the sex, the buying the bling and the glam things. Cerebral narcissists is all about the intellect, the music, the science, and elite combine somatic and cerebral traits. Those are the four cadres, and those different types of cadre of narcissist allied with the differing schools. So you might get a lower narcissist who thinks he's Mr. Loverman and thinks he's really good looking, but he's deluded and he's not, bald in pate and a bit of beer belly. And then you may get an upper mid-range narcissist who is very well dressed, has an excellent job, and is wealthy, and utilizes those for the purpose of ensnaring the victim. And so it's all about that manifestation of control.
Okay, I don't want to give this person away. She sent me a question. She was in a very long relationship with a narcissist.
Yes.
Obviously, he cheated on her. She found out. They're no longer together. She says, I know I don't want him back, but I secretly hope he wants me back, just so I can tell him off. So here's my question for you to ask. What are some techniques to get the ex-narc boyfriend off of your mind?
Okay. The dynamic, when you're with a narcissist, you fight two battles. The enemy without, keeping us away from you. The enemy within, keeping yourself away from the narcissist. And there are, of course, many people who will say, I never want him to darken my doorstep ever again. No way would I ever end up in a relationship with him again. But what do you then go and do? You spend your time looking on his Facebook profile, see what he's putting on Twitter, see who he's talking to and who he's liking. You sit outside his house in the car to see who's coming and going. You talk about it with your friends. Have you heard what he's up to? Who's he seeing? What's she like? You don't want to be with them, but you're thinking about the narcissist, you're talking about the narcissist, you're watching what the narcissist is doing. Those are all forms of interaction, and you're feeding your addiction, and you're making your emotional thinking stronger, so it will keep you in the game. Because you are on the narcissist wheel of misery, and it works like this. Your emotional thinking is high because you've been interacting regularly in lots of different ways with the narcissist. That means there's no room for logic. That means you'll be guided by emotional thinking, which means you'll interact more with the narcissist, which means then you keep your emotional thinking high. There's no room for logic. You'll be guided by emotional thinking. You'll interact more with the narcissist, and round it goes. How do you break that? Well, use my work, build up your logic defenses, and understand no contact has to be the way to go. Stay away from the narcissist, don't communicate with the narcissist. You don't need to know what the narcissist is doing. If you think that, you're being conned by your emotional thinking. Think of it this way. Imagine you're in your house and there's a burglar outside. Would you go outside and think, well, I need to know what the burglar's doing, so I'll search for him behind the trash cans in the garden and in the alleyway? Or would you sit in your house, lock all the doors and windows, have the Rottweiler ready, a shotgun primed, CCTV on, and dial 911? You do the latter, wouldn't you? So similarly with the narcissist, people think, I need to know what he's doing, because if I know what he's doing, I can better defend myself. You don't. You stay away. You don't talk to your friends about it all. Why? Much as your friends are well-intentioned and try to help you, they won't understand. Very few will understand what narcissism is. And often they'll get sick and tired of you going over and over and over about he did this and he said that. And even though you don't want to spend any time with the narcissist, you're keeping him alive or her alive by talking about them. And then, as you say, it's thinking about the narcissist. And what you have to do, you have to cut down all those arenas that I've mentioned, because getting the narcissist out of your head is the final battle. And there are a range of techniques which are too detailed for me to go into now, but the way that you go about it is there are 5 arenas of interaction that I mentioned. You've got to close down the roots in all of those, the first 4, and then there is the final battle, which is getting the narcissist out of your head. And I've developed another assistance package, which is called the final battle. There's a range of techniques that you can utilize, and they work, that will stop you thinking about the narcissist. I give you the tools, you'll have to wield them. You have to put in the hard work. I can't do it for you. It's a bit like exercising. You want to drop 3 stone? It's not going to happen overnight. Eat less, move more over a series of months. I can tell you what to eat, I can tell you how to exercise, but you've got to do it all. But the difference is, because I understand my kind and your kind inside out, I can explain to you why you keep thinking about the narcissist, what the triggers are for that, and also the techniques that I explain to you to get them out of your head will also get rid of those awful feelings of anger, misery, hurt, waking up crying about the narcissist, stop you dreaming about the narcissist, because you have an addiction to the narcissist. That's why you were a victim in the first place. And your emotional thinking wants to feed that addiction. It doesn't care about your physical health or your mental health. It wants you to feed that addiction, which means it wants you going to the narcissist and saying, you're a complete douchebag. How could you dare to treat me this way? What are you doing? You're giving the narcissist fuel. He wins, you lose. You're getting upset. You lose, he wins. And you're increasing your emotional thinking because you're interacting. You lose, he wins, because this is a zero-sum game. You've got to stay out of all of those arenas, the first 4, and then you tackle the final one, the final battle, which is about thinking. Utilize those techniques, which are disciplining yourself to go to distractions and to use a process called triple reinforcement, which I describe in the work as well. And it will work. You get that emotional thinking down, you won't hate the narcissist anymore. You won't want to be back with the narcissist. You will feel nothing. And it gets you to a point that I call zero impact. And I help many people get to that point. And it's massively liberating for you.
Okay. Someone asked or made a statement. I understand alienating, gaslighting, and verbally abusing your target, but what drives a narcissist to physical abuse?
Okay. Basically, it's the type of narcissist you're dealing with. So any narcissist is capable of physical violence. Greater narcissists don't tend to use it because we're aware of the repercussions that can flow from it, because we're calculating. Mid-range narcissists don't tend to do it very often or at all because they operate a facade. Mid-range narcissists tend to think they're nice people. They often think they're empaths. And you see them lurking around in cyberspace, some of whom run support forums for victims of narcissism. There may be people listening who've had unfortunate experiences on some of these forums. It's likely that you've run into a mid-range narcissist who thinks they're an empath, but they're not. Lesser narcissists are more likely to use physical violence. Why? They basically have a limited range of manipulations available to them because they don't tend to be that clever. They also have limited opportunity, but most importantly of all, they have a low threshold on their ignited fury. When you wound us, it ignites our fury, either heated fury, which might be shouting at you, verbally abusing you, or punching you, cold fury, cold shoulder, walking off, sitting and sulking, or sometimes a combination of the two. And that's a visceral reaction of the narcissist that is generated to make the narcissist do something to cause you to stop wounding us. So if the narcissist punches you, you're in pain, the narcissist feels in control, your tears, your hurt, your upset signals the narcissist in control, the wounding is ended, the narcissist has got control, because that's all that matters to the narcissist. So the lesser narcissists with a lower threshold on their ignited fury, they basically snap easier and faster than other types of narcissist. Added to that, Lesser narcissists utilize heated fury because that's the type of narcissist they are, and they have a more limited repertoire of manipulations available to them, which includes physical violence, violence to property, verbal violence. Those are the go-tos for those. So lower lessers, who are basic out-and-out loser individuals, trailer trash, beer swilling, wife-beating types, they aren't really capable of effective triangulation because they've just not got it as their repertoire of manipulation, or if they do, it's very basic and rudimentary. And they need to assert control quickly, so they go to physical violence. They don't stand there and think, what's the best way of getting my wife in order? Oh, I know, I'll headbutt her. It's instantaneous because it's a self-defense mechanism. In the way that you're all listening now, if you all heard a bang, you'd all instinctively shrink down. If you thought, oh, there's a loud noise, that's an explosion, a bomb might have gone off, there might be debris flying through the air, I better make myself small. Too late, you're cut in half. So in the same way the narcissist's response is instantaneous, he doesn't think about doing it, he just does it. And this, again, is the vast majority of narcissists that people will have been ensnared by, less from mid-range. So physical violence tends to be any narcissist can engage in it, but graders don't, because we've got a wider range of manipulations, which mean that we'll use them rather than run the risk of trouble, because hitting somebody leaves evidence. It might be witnessed as well. Mid-rangers don't like to do it that often or at all because they operate a facade. So rather than strike their wife in front of a crowd of people at a dinner party, they'd sit and sulk instead. And that behaviour asserts control. The wife, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's the matter? Oh, nothing, such and such has upset me. Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. And that fits in more, is more acceptable in a sense behaviour. With the lesser, it doesn't have that range of options, and the lesser will turn around and punch somebody in front of horrified individuals. But the lesser doesn't care. Oh, you're all idiots. It's my way or the highway. What do you know? Just deal with it. So it comes down to the type of narcissist that you're dealing with.
Okay, HG, someone in the chat wants to know if you would be willing to discuss the likely negative outcomes of responding, defending yourself to narcissist attacks on social media. So if you're interacting on social media, and we all do that, we do it right here on YouTube. So could you maybe talk a little bit about that?
Okay, so you're commenting on something and somebody attacks you. Is that what they're referring to?
Yes, and it's a narcissist. You're dealing with narcissists all the time. So obviously they're on social media. So
yeah, well, if that individual is somebody who's not known to you and they're a narcissist in a chat room, don't engage with them. It's as simple as that. They'll keep prodding at you, but it works like this. We have to assert control over you, so we will provoke you in some way. Often it works. And when you react, that signals to us that we've got control over you, or are gaining control over you, so we prod. And then we'll move on. If you ignore us, you wound us. We're forced to try and get you under control, so we will try a bit harder. If you ignore us again, we're wounded. We might try a bit harder. You ignore us again, you wound us. At this point, the narcissism, if it had a voice, is screaming at the narcissist, abort, we're getting nowhere. We're getting no fuel, we can't assert control over this individual. So the narcissist will shift to a different form of manipulation, which might be complaining to other people. Scaredy cat, won't answer me, can't respond to my comments. Doesn't matter, resist the urge. You have no obligation to respond to that person, and indeed, you should refrain from doing so. Or the narcissist disappears, because the narcissism will make the narcissist assert control over you by no longer trying to do so. And so in certain instances, the narcissist will withdraw. The worst thing that you can do is try and argue with us. The worst thing you can do is try and point out, using facts, that we're wrong and that you're right. Remember, the narcissist isn't looking at it from your perspective. So when you say, well, actually, your comments about this political person is incorrect because this, and this, the narcissist doesn't see what you're writing and think, oh, yes, what a valid argument. They hear this. I'm being controlled by this person. This can't happen. I'm going to write something nasty in response because, driven by my narcissism, that's what I must do. And remember, for the majority of narcissists, that is unconscious. They don't sit there thinking it. They just think, who's this arsehole coming along being Mr. Clever Clogs, telling me this, that, and the other? Ooh, look at him with his big dictionary words. I'm going to set him straight. Ignore them. Come off social media if necessary for a period of time. Block these individuals. Ultimately, many of you have seen it, the refrain, don't feed the troll. And that's what it's about.
Yes.
That's what it's about. Don't give us a reaction, because if you do, we're like a shark scenting blood. You're giving us validation, so we'll want more. And we know we've rattled you because we instinctively recognize what's going on. It's hard for many of you to do this because you're empaths and you have an empathic trait of truth-seeking. And so it's very hard for you to actually go, well, I'm not going to reply to this person. I need to set them straight. And it's not because you're haughty or arrogant. It's because it's part of who you are. And what you've got to learn is it's utterly futile what you're trying to do. And all you're going to do is let us win. So you've got to bite your tongue. Is it fair? No. But we're not talking about whether it's fair or not. We're talking about what the right thing for you to do is. So when you encounter these people on social media, I have them. They come on my blog and try and bait me. I find it amusing. I see exactly what they are straight away. But I'm not an empath, so it doesn't affect me in the way that it would affect you. And ultimately on my blog, it's all moderated to protect my other readers. So after a while, I let them in. My readers say, HG, let's open the window. So I let them fly in so they can be used as an example so people can utilize their learning. And then after a while, I just delete their comments. And they disappear because they're not getting anything. So then narcissism causes them to leave. They'll put 2 or 3 comments into the moderation, squawking and flapping against my assertion of control over them. But their comments don't see the air of day, the light of day rather. So their narcissism tells them unconsciously, we can't assert control over this chap and his readers. We'll have to go elsewhere. So they go and find another forum to fly around in instead. And once in a while, they'll come back and their comments don't get through. That's what I do with them. I don't give them what they want, fuel, and nor should you.
Right. And, unfortunately, I do it all the time. I try to defend myself. But, the longer it goes on, I do see that it's futile to even on because.
But you have a sense of, you have empathic traits, you see, of fairness, of decency, of being a truth seeker, of justice. And remember, you have an addiction to narcissists. So what your addiction does, it's very crafty. It basically does this. Oh, great. There's a narcissist here. Let's get Diane to engage with this narcissist because that'll mean the addiction's getting fed. Let's get her to engage by trying to get this person straight and get her to defend herself. We will hijack her empathic traits of honesty, of decency, and justice to get her to engage. And you're conned, because your emotional thinking is rising, into thinking, I should set them straight. I should defend myself. But what you've got to do is recognize, narcissist, what's the first golden rule of freedom that HG explains? Once you know, you go. You give us nothing. That's how you win. You come onto our battlefield, it's our rules, and they're always changing. Don't come on the battlefield, and you win.
Okay. Let's see. Oh, I had a question from someone. What do you do when you're working, your boss is a narcissist? And let's face it, we all have to work, and it's not that easy to just pick up and leave. How do you deal with a narcissistic boss?
Okay, well, again, I have this situation covered by another of my assistance packages, which is how to handle the narcissist at work. Starting point, look for another job. Is it fair? No, but it will cure the problem. So that's a consideration. Now, I appreciate it's not always easy to do that, but you should consider it because it'll cure the problem. If you can't or won't do that, then what you've got to do is realize this person's a narcissist, so I'm going to still stay in their environs. I can't control them because they're designed not to be controlled. I can't persuade them. I can't lavish them with positive fuel because if I'm painted black, everything about me is painted black, it won't work. So what you have to do is you minimize your interaction. And the assistance package goes through a lot of detail about that, but essentially, can you transfer to a different department? Can you report to somebody else? Have your interactions in writing, because then you're not providing as much fuel, so the narcissist ultimately will start to lose interest in pestering you and will go and pester somebody else instead. And also you're creating evidence. Where you've got appropriate evidence, raise a grievance and involve a disciplinary matter. The problem is that many people, led by their emotional thinking, try and tackle the narcissist by going in to see them and say, I don't think you're being very nice to me or very fair to me. What are you doing now? You're challenging the narcissist. The narcissist is not going to sit down and go, actually, you're right. I've been downright terrible to you. I'm ever so sorry. Here, have a cigar and a pay rise. He won't. He'll think, what are you talking about? I don't do that, because his narcissism automatically rejects the perception of you trying to control. So you have to work around the narcissist. If there's a higher up that you can utilize to bring legal, as in the sense of disciplinary procedure, or even a legal claim for some form of harassment, discrimination, depending upon relevant labour laws that are applicable, you can utilize that. Or the best route, because remember, the only circumstances where you can try and cause the narcissist to do something is where you've got a legal machinery to impose a judgment or sanction or order. If you don't have that available to you, forget it. You're not going to persuade us to see your point of view, because we are pathologically incapable of doing it. So you have to work around it. Reduce your interaction with the boss. Try and work for a different boss. Try and split the duties with somebody else so you've got less exposure. Don't enter into meetings, because verbal sparring we relish, because we can assert control over you and use plausible deniability. You complain about what we've said in the meeting, it's your word against ours. Many other people won't want to get embroiled in the spat, whereas if it's in an email, that's much clearer and you can utilize a higher up. And again, the assistance package that I mentioned goes through a huge amount of detail to help people deal with that situation. So that's just a flavor of the things that you can do.
Okay, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
Do narcissists have a sense of humor?
Yes.
Okay, but what if, okay, so let's say I made a joke about you. I poked fun at you. Would you find it funny, or is it only funny if I poked fun at someone else? Made a joke about someone else.
If you poke fun at me, what you're doing is you're giving me fuel, because you're giving me an emotional reaction, but you're challenging me because you're mocking me, and therefore you're offending my innate sense of superiority. And what does that mean? You're threatening my control. If you threaten my control, I've got to do something about it. Now, as a greater of intelligence and experience, I would probably counter your joke with one of my own, have other people laugh and get the upper hand that way. And you feel a bit silly and it makes me look good. And there's no real harm in all of that, okay? A less evolved narcissist might turn around a lesser one and go, swear at you, slap you, threaten you, because they don't have a sense of humour when it comes to being challenged. But we can exhibit a sense of humour to control. So many of my readers will say, you've got an excellent sense of humour. Yes, in the sense of utilising it to control people. But if you poke fun at me, my sense of humour evaporates. Yes, because of the type of narcissist that I am, I might use humour then to control you, but it's not done in a sincere joking way. It's actually being done because I want to put you down and make you look silly for what you've done to me. But I do it in a way, because of the skill that I have, that it's not immediately apparent. But other types of narcissists, mid-range and lesser, might sulk, storm off, or attack you, or complain about you, triangulate you with other people. But it's all right for the narcissist, and many narcissists can make other people laugh and charm people with humour. So the sense of humour works, if you like, in two ways. We can use it in the same way that we might use sex or good looks or the good old chocolate cake to control you. But our sense of humour is a door that only goes one way. And when you try and poke fun at us, even if it's light-hearted, you're threatening our control, and therefore you'll get a different response from us. That famous sense of humour that the narcissist at work that ordinarily exhibits, suddenly evaporates, and you think, hang on a second, oh yeah, he can dole it out, but he can't take it. You'll have heard that before. You're dealing with a narcissist.
Okay, fair enough. So here's another question. Is there any kind of a surefire test or signs that a person can look for before they actually let that narcissist in their life? If they, let's say they meet someone, they like them, but are there signs that you should look for that are really going to be apparent that that person is a narcissist?
Okay. There is no one factor, because an item in isolation can only be indicative and is not determinative. Okay? So what you've got to look for is a range of behaviours over over a period of time. It doesn't have to be a long period of time. I have a book called Red Flag, and it deals with 50 signs of narcissistic manipulation when you're being seduced. So, if you have somebody who is very complimentary about you, that's a red flag, but it doesn't mean they're a narcissist. If that's the only red flag that you see, that person, that's just the way that they are. They are a bit heavy with the compliments, but they're not a narcissist. Because narcissists and non-narcissists can engage in similar behaviors. The difference is when you've established what they are, you then look at that behavior through the prism of that person. So let's take, for example, you buy somebody a gift. Why do you do it? You don't do it to manipulate them. You do it because you have emotional empathy for them, because it's their birthday, and therefore you buy them a present for their birthday because they are your friend and you feel a sense of accountability for that friendship. We see your behavior buying a gift through the prism of you not being a narcissist. I buy somebody a gift, which of course has to be better than your gift, for their birthday. I'm a narcissist. So you look at my action through the prism of my narcissism, and I do it not because I care. I have no emotional empathy. I do it in order to control that person. So they say, oh, great, HG, what a fantastic gift. They give me fuel. I have control over them. So that's interpreting it through the relevant prism. But that act of just buying a gift, you can't determine it from it in itself. But if I've only just met you and I buy you 7 gifts in 7 days, major red flags there, because that's excessive. It's too fast. It's not recognizing boundaries. Somebody who's excessively complimentary, as well as buying those gifts. Somebody who sends you hundreds of texts. Somebody who monopolizes your time by speaking to you for hours on the phone each night. Somebody who bashes the ex. That's always a good indicator. And again, you look at the other behaviors. For instance, many of you listening, been on the receiving end of our kind. You might meet somebody new, and they'll ask you about previous relationships. And you probably say something, well, yes, the last one didn't work out. It was a difficult relationship. What you don't do is at the outset is spill your guts by going, oh, yeah, he was a narcissist. He did this to me and that to me. He was absolutely crazy and everything else. Why? Because you recognize the boundary of your interaction with this new person, that you don't overshare all of that information because you don't need to control them. You also have emotional empathy for them. They don't want to be overloaded with your tale of woe. You may well tell them several months down the line about what happened with the ex when you are more established in the relationship, and therefore the boundaries alter. But narcissists, because of the need to control, move things on quickly and grandly, and often that involves triangulation with the ex. Yeah, the ex is a psycho. You never know. She could turn up here tonight. If she does, we'll leave, because, whoa, she is completely Cocoa Pops crazy. Somebody saying that and telling you all about all the horrible things that she's purportedly done is violating boundaries by telling you too much, is not having emotional empathy because they are loading you with all this information. And it's a form of manipulation, which is designed to make you feel sorry for the narcissist and wary of the ex. And if that ex does come along and say, hi, I know that you're seeing my ex. You need to know he's a narcissist and you need to get away from him. What does that new victim invariably do? Oh, no, I've heard all about you. You're the jealous ex.
Right,
he's told me, he's warned me about you. He said you'd do this. And your emotional thinking is high. Why? You've been repeatedly interacting with that narcissist. You believe us because we're plausible. And that wide-eyed, frazzled ex that comes along is just a jealous harpy who is trying to ruin your brilliant relationship with this wonderful man who's just come into your life. There's just a handful of some of the indicators. And red flag gives you 50 of them. So you look for them over a pattern of time. Because when you first interact with the narcissist, if you've not been interacting with any narcissist beforehand, your emotional thinking will be lower, which means you'll apply logic. And so you will spot, you need to know what these red flags are, but you also need to heed them. And many of you listening will think back to those early days of when you were ensnared and think, I look back at it and I can see all the red flags now, but I didn't see them at the time. Either you didn't know what they were, or you recognized something was off, but you didn't act on it because your emotional thinking conned you. So, for instance, you might have thought, goodness me, he texts me a lot. Your emotional thinking essentially whispers in your ear, yes, but it's all nice texts, and he's just really into you. And isn't it nice that he's giving you all this lovely attention, particularly after that idiot you were with before, who of course was a narcissist, and you've fallen straight into another one. If you've been involved with a narcissist you managed to escape or you're disengaged from, stay away from dating for 6 months. Don't fall for crap such as the best way to get over somebody is to get into somebody else. You'll just walk into the arms of another narcissist. Why? Your emotional thinking is high from the previous relationship, interacting with that person, thinking about them, talking about them, perhaps trying to deal with a smear campaign against you. You go dating, they're hunting grounds of our kind. Certainly stay away from online dating. Don't bother with it, because you will have so many of our kind circling you. Once you recognize red flags and you drive down that emotional thinking by staying out of these hunting grounds for 6 months, that's not a long time in the scheme of things. You bring your emotional thinking down, you read about what these red flags are from my work, you'll spot them and you'll act on them, most importantly. And what you do is, it's not about finding the right person, it's about avoiding the wrong person. You draw us to you because we're attracted to you, because you give us what we want in spades. And we are addicted to the control and fuel over you because you are the easiest types of people to ensnare, because you're empaths, and you're the easiest to keep ensnared. So we want to come after you. So we're drawn like bees to the honeypot. But if you see us coming and you're using logic, you'll be able to evade us, and then you will spot. And there's 7 billion people on this planet, so don't ever think, oh, I'll never meet anybody. You will. And don't think, oh, normal people are boring. Narcissists are really exciting. That's just emotional thinking. You drive down your emotional thinking, you suddenly realize, oh, I don't want to be with narcissists. Everything he did was fake, even at the beginning. Don't fall for thinking he must have liked me at some point. We don't. When we do all of those lovely things for you, you're just being manipulated, but you don't see it.
Someone, I have another question, but someone, and we only have 10 minutes left with HD, by the way. Someone said, being a narcissist seems so exhausting.
I hear that regularly. It is to you, because it does sound exhausting to you because you're not us. It isn't to me. It's what I am, and I do it very effectively. But yes, I understand that, and I hear it regularly. For you, it does sound exhausting.
Yeah, it does.
And many narcissists aren't that effective at it, and so they have, because remember, the narcissism drives us to assert control. So that means that everything else in the narcissist's life can go to pot so long as he has control. So that's why certain narcissists fall out with family members, fall out with friends, are in and out of jobs, intimate relationships are chaotic. They get into trouble with the police. Because so long as they can assert control, everything else is a variable that can go up and down, peaks and troughs. In your life, many of you will have variations, and of course you'll have them if you've been ensnared by us. But most of the things in your life are fairly steady. Your finances, your relationships at work, your relationship with friends, with your family, the performance at your job. There'll be little dips and so on, but it's not violent peaks and troughs. The one thing that would be peaks and troughs if you had a graph is your control, because you don't need it over people. For us, control is the main thing. We want that line to be as straight as it possibly can. So for the line of control on that graph to be straight, everything else is up and down. And it depends on the type of narcissist. More evolved narcissists such as I, it's not such a problem. Less evolved ones, the lessers, lower mid-range, even middle mid-range, they're the ones that have the chaotic lifestyles, and that's why it does seem exhausting. But they don't see it. They might complain about it, but that's just another form of manipulation, a pity play.
Okay, someone in the chat asked, is it possible for a narcissist to love an animal?
No, it is just a form of triangulation. It's an object that you're triangulated with, and it's the manifestation of asserting control over that. So, for instance, giving a dog lots of affection and not you to make you jealous of the dog. So many narcissists can appear to care for an animal, but again, it's just the manifestation of doing so because it's a possession. Everything's an object to us, and we don't, at an unconscious level, distinguish between you and the TV set. You are another TV set. The dog is a toaster.
Oh, you see, wow. That seems so sad to me, because my next question is, does a narcissist feel any joy whatsoever? I know for me, my pet is like my life. Does a narcissist have any joy in their life?
No.
No. Does that,
No.
and that doesn't make you, I know this is going to sound silly, but that doesn't make you sad that you can't feel love for even an animal?
No. We don't do joy. We don't do happy. We don't do sad. What we do is control and fuel and power. So when we feel at an unconscious level we've got power over somebody, it fills us up with fuel. And externally, we will look like we're happy, but that's just the external manifestation of the fuel that's there. And to you, of course, you think, well, that sounds terrible, that you can't feel joy, you can't feel sadness, you can't feel happiness. And there'll be some narcissists that will make a play on that. And it's not because they know that's what they can't feel. It's just that their narcissism uses that as a way to draw pity from people by going, oh, I can't feel happiness. He doesn't truly, genuinely realize that. His narcissism says to him, you can say this to assert control over that person. But it doesn't matter to us because it's absent from us. Many people say that narcissists don't feel things we do, but they're generally negative in nature: hatred, jealousy, envy, antipathy, scorn, contempt. Our manifestation of happy, and we will talk about being happy because we use the same language as you in order to fit in. And because most narcissists aren't self-aware. And of course, I don't go around saying to people, oh yeah, I'm really fueled today. I'll say, yeah, I'm happy. Why? Because that cons you into thinking that I'm like you. And therefore it makes it easier for me to control you. But it doesn't trouble me that I can't feel joy. It doesn't trouble me in the slightest. All that matters to me is control and fuel. That's what works for me.
All right. Well, listen, this hour and a half really went by quite quickly.
Indeed.
And there are some people in here that are already saying they want to buy. I missed the particular book that someone said that they want to buy, but I do want to remind everyone that I did put the links in my description to his site where it's a blog site. Is that what you would consider it?
If people go to the blog site, which is narcsite.com, it's called Knowing the Narcissist, narcsite.com. That's my HQ. I've got pages on Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and YouTube, but they're fed from the blog. Come there, you'll find all the assistance packages and logic bulletins that I've talked about, and as you kindly mentioned, my books are on Amazon as well. Come to the blog and you can ask me questions, and I answer them regularly. I think I've answered about 30,000 in my time of utilising the blog, but also you can access paid services for more bespoke assistance if you require it. The books are inexpensive. There's a lot of free articles there that you can access, and if you want my further help, then you can access those paid services. And read the testimonials as well, and you can make your own mind up. It's a constructive environment. I know some people are wary of me because of what I am, but I'm not a stupid man. You come and learn from me, access those materials, and you will get the world's best information, and it'll help you get free. You don't have to like me. Just use the work for yourself. You win, I win, and I love winning.
Oh, absolutely. If I was in a situation where I needed help, I would definitely, go to your site. I would definitely read your books. I fortunately have never had a relationship with a narcissist. I've been fortunate in my life in that. But there are some people that are, suffering, and it's taking them a very long time to get over that abusive relationship with a narcissist. So that's why
it's difficult. But if you access my material, because I understand it and I understand you, I just give it to you straight. I'm not there doing the fluffy hand-holding stuff. It's direct. It will help you because it's helped tens of thousands. Access it. You have nothing to lose.
Okay, so just so everyone knows in the chat, I'm not ending the stream yet, even though HD will be leaving. I'm going to invite some people up on panel if they want to have an after discussion about what the information that HD gave you, or if you want to share anything about what you're going through in a relationship right now. But HD, I want to thank you again. I will follow up with you in an email.
Certainly.
I do appreciate you taking your time. And
not at all. My pleasure.
It was a pleasure having you up here, actually. Thank you so much. And if you need to know how to leave the studio, it says at the bottom, it'll have a little orange box, a little orange circle. I'm sorry. It says leave studio.
Yeah, I've got that. Thank you very much for giving me a navigation out of here. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And I look forward to helping anybody who wants to look for that help. And thank you for inviting me onto the show.
It was my pleasure having you up here, HG.
Okay.
Okay.
Bye-bye.
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 Okay, everyone. So if there's, I did promise that if anyone would like to come up and share something that might be going on in your life, again, all of HG's links are in my description, so that if you want to go to his blog, he does answer a lot of questions. He has had over 1 million hits on there. He also has a YouTube channel. He hasn't done any videos in the past 3 months, but he has some excellent videos that I even listen to, because I'm pretty naive to the narcissist. I've never been in a relationship with one, fortunately for me, but I do understand by listening to some of the people from our chat when they came up on our last panel. It's heartbreaking. No, no. I paid him. I don't need donations. Thank you, though, Selena. Yeah, he didn't come up here for nothing. Yeah, he has a business. This is his business. Understanding that he can give valuable information to help all of you who might be in a narcissistic relationship. That's what he's doing. I personally find it very sad that narcissists can't love, that narcissists can't even love an animal. And I do feel like it must be exhausting. I do feel that. It's got to be tiresome. And we all know that. We have seen some people probably that we know, just from the little bit that I've learned about narcissism, that I see people that are in danger, and I want to reach out to them and I want to tell them, get away. But it's difficult to do that. So if you have a friend that you possibly know is in a narcissistic relationship right now, reach out to them and tell them, and I think you're with a narcissist and you need to get away. And if you don't believe me, put them in the direction of HG and let them hear it, because he's an outsider. He's a narcissist. He's not going to sugarcoat anything for you. So does anyone want to come up? I'm going to drop the link. And I'm only going to let people up here who are serious. Don't come up here to, if anybody's in the chat. I think that, I was trying to pay attention to the chat. It was difficult for me because I needed to read questions and I had to go back and forth. And, of course, I was listening to him. But I'm going to drop the link right now. If anyone would like to come up, who has even people who are in the chat who might have sent me questions, if you want to come up and say anything. Yeah, there are some people that probably do need to pack their bags and leave, but it's difficult. It's a very difficult situation. And thank you, mods, for watching out for the chat, because I didn't want to have trolls coming in here and interrupting a serious discussion. Thank you, niece. Oh, we have somebody up here. Let's see who it is. Hold on. Okay.
It's Lee RD. How are you, Diane?
Good. How are you?
Well, I tell you, I've been listening to HG Tudor for quite a few years.
Okay.
And he's triggering because I've lived through everything that.
Right. I get it.
Yeah, I sent you an email. I'm a little, when I hear his voice, I get triggered because it's like hearing my ex-husband.
Well, yeah, but you do understand the point of me wanting to bring him up here, because
I think it's excellent. I'm just feeling a little shaky right now.
I get it.
I was married 35 years. Now, I want you to know, when he said supernova empath is a moment in time of the empath, that's exactly the mode that I entered to be able to get out of this 35-year marriage. Now, altogether, by the time we got divorced and everything was said and done, I mean, now it would be 42 years. I mean, my whole life
Wow.
was with this man, and it was just. And here's the funny thing. I initially thought that he was having a midlife crisis. Okay, because I lived with the sweet mean cycle, and he was a Gemini. So in my mind, I knew Geminis had two personalities. So from the moment we were married, it was a long-standing joke. I'm not going to take the floor very long because I see there's other people here, but I just want to say my story as quickly as possible. So I equated it with his sun sign, and it was always like a long-standing joke through the marriage. Mr. Hyde is here. Okay, let me know when Dr. Jekyll comes back.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know anything about narcissism. I knew about passive aggressive disorder, schizophrenia, bipolar, the general stuff. But as far as narcissism, I equated it with Greek mythology, a handsome man looking in the water. I didn't know this was an illness.
Yeah, I didn't either. I didn't know. I didn't know anything about narcissists really until I came to social media, and people throw the word around so often. That's a narc. You're a narc. Stop gaslighting me. And I'm like, yeah, what is even gaslighting? I didn't even know what that meant. So,
well, the idea is I lived with gaslighting. I lived with projection. I lived with sweet mean cycle. I will tell you, the biggest place they start trouble is in a car. If you're in a car alone with them, they do destroy every party, every birthday, every holiday.
yeah.
I've been through it. Now, I just want to say this, like I said, I don't want to steal the floor, but I initially thought he was going through a midlife crisis. Why? Because I stopped seeing Dr. Jekyll. Mr. Hyde was in the house longer.
Right.
Okay. Right. So I had told my physician something's, we were going to the same doctor's office, I would see the PA and whatever. And I said, I think something's wrong with him, blah, 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 blah. I think I need a therapist, because, now the kids are married, they're graduates, and now it's just him and I. And I was ghosted. It's like I wasn't even in the house. So I've been through it all. But I want you to know, underneath all that, I was madly, deeply in love with Dr. Jekyll and always will be. There's nothing I can do about that.
Right.
So when I did find a therapist, and when I found the therapist, then I found out other things. Thank God I had a therapist in place. It's very difficult to find a good therapist. It's not easy. And when I went to the therapist, she said, so what can I do for you? Why are you here? And I said, well, I've been for 35 years, lived with Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. The problem is I don't know where Dr. Jekyll went. So,
yeah.
Of course, right away, the therapist knew what I was dealing with. But I have a lot more to say, but I just want to say one more thing before we hang up. My daughter's in the theater, very active. And I do go up on panels, so a lot of people know that. My daughter got a real big, she's been in the theater for a long time, but right prior to signing these divorce papers, now he's out of the house and everything else, right? So this is the first show we're going to separately, right? This kid's been performing since she's a kid. And guess what the show was? Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde.
Oh, my.
So after the show, my daughter calls me up and she says, Mom, you won't believe what happened. I says, what, honey? Because, of course, I went to the opening. She goes, well, after the show, Daddy came over to me and you know what he said? And I said, what? He says, your mom always called me Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Now I know what she meant.
Yeah.
So
I really feel, real empathy towards anyone who has had, listen, I know someone who's my friend who, Wendy's talked about it. She was in a relationship, and it's hard to get over That's
Well, the whole thing is, I don't think I'll ever get over it because you're grieving someone that you have, me in my case, that I was, I'm not a kid, okay? My whole life was with this man. But one thing I have to say, I protected my children because when he would get in these moods, I would get the kids to go in the pool or go do some homework or go play or go karaoke or go, do something.
Right.
I did everything in my power to make sure none of these arguments happened in front of my children. So when this marriage ended, my children were like in a state of absolute shock. Then my kids started remembering things. After I got divorced, like I would see my son, Mom, I was thinking when I was 7 or 8 and blah, blah, blue happened. Oh, yeah. And then my daughter, gee whiz, Mom, I remembered Daddy started a big fight with you in the car on the way to a wedding and I was sitting in the back seat. I remember. Oh, and, they started remembering things, that they didn't have to remember. And the idea is my children are adults. And that's another thing. People think adult children don't get affected. Yes, they do. We have grit. And not only that, no contact. And I will say, thank God, lawyer up. Lawyer up big time. Absolutely no contact. He just tried to mess up. I was in court with him I just finished court with him this June. He was doing everything right for about a year and a half. And then boom, he thought, hey, I don't, blah, blah. Hey, I was back in court with him. But here's the whole thing. The tip is, once you stop reacting, which is what I did, he was just no fuel.
Right.
He had no fuel, period. End of story. I was done. And that was it. So.
Well, thank God you're out now. And your children are grown. So if your children are grown, right? Both of your children are grown?
Oh, yeah, they're adults. My son will be 39. Yeah.
So there's no reason to have any contact anymore with him?
Oh, no. Once you have to understand another thing, ladies. They will lie and lie and lie and lie. You have to find proof and you have to get a good attorney. Period. End of story. You have to. There's no other way. You have to go through the courts.
Well, that's what HG said. That's why he said that, it's not, impossible to have no contact, even if you have small children.
Let me tell you something. When I just had to go back to court for the last year, which I was shocked, he thought, that's it. He could just give me whatever he wants and not adhere. And I had no idea. I had to actually get up on the stand, Diane.
Oh my.
We're already divorced. He's not following the divorce agreement a year and a half, 2 years later. And it's like, I says, oh my God, it's like getting divorced all over again. I can't do this, and then I said, no, I have to. He can't get away with this. That's ridiculous. The law is the law. So when we get to the court, I had no idea how to get on the stand and everything else. And I tell you what, I'm very proud of myself. I'm
happy that I'm happy that you're out of it. I'm sorry that you had to go through all those years.
But here's the thing, Diane. Dr. Jekyll was a wonderful man. And because they are Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. So you fall in love with Dr. Jekyll. He's very charming.
Right. Well, thank you, Lee, for coming up. I want to get a chance for Shell.
Absolutely.
She's in another country, and it's, I don't know, it's like, what time is it there? 3:00 in the morning. So I want to give Shell a chance to speak because.
Can I stay up on panel, or do you want me to get off?
No, you can stay up.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Go ahead, Shell. How are you?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks.
I don't think I got to your question because I forgot.
No, you did.
I did get your question. Okay, because I wasn't sure if I took the ones out of Twitter and put them into my email. So, okay, I'm glad that I was able to ask your question.
Yeah, and that was very, very enlightening to me.
Okay, what was your question again, Shell?
Well, I was the one who, I said I actually understand the gaslighting and the verbal abuse, but what leads to physical abuse.
Okay.
So that was really enlightening and scary because it confirms to me that I actually was with a narc. So,
Okay.
but it was really scary because I met this guy when I was like 17 years old, and he was a couple of years older than me, and he treated me like a queen for about a year and a half. And then he asked me to marry him, and I did because he treated me like a queen, like a princess. And then once we got married, all of a sudden I was a piece of property. He alienated me from my friends and family. And at first I did not notice it because he did it in this way where he was constantly like up my butt. He was just he was constantly taking up my time. Like if I was going to go out to the movies with my friends, he would, oh, I'm going to make you a dinner tonight, that kind of thing. So you don't notice it because it seems like, oh, he's being romantic, right?
Right.
And so by the time we got married, my friends had basically kind of just disappeared because they knew I wouldn't be out with them anyway, you know? And I was too stupid to see that because I was 17. So, um, but then once we got married, he started alienating me from my family. Um, I wasn't allowed to work because he was afraid that I would meet someone better than him. He then, because wasn't working, he was like, oh, stay home and be a housewife, blah, blah, blah. Then that gave me no access to money because then he went and took all the money and from our joint account, pulled it out and stuck it in his own account. He would do things like disable the car. Things were being moved all over the house and I couldn't find things, and it was driving me crazy, and I would ask him about it and he would tell me I'm stupid or, you know, I'm losing my mind. And it was just every day was a battle, and I was constantly being verbally beaten up, right? And then all of a sudden it turned to physical abuse. And it was really bad. It was really bad. And this went on for 8 years. And, you know, he actually made a plan to kill me.
Oh my
And
God.
he had a friend from work down in our living room, and I was upstairs in the bedroom, and they were drunk, and they were talking about their plan to take me out to the desert and blow my kneecaps off and leave me out there to die.
Oh my God.
And I mean, he would punch me in the face when I was sleeping. It was it was horrifying. And
So
at one
sorry.
at one
Wow.
point he beat me black and blue, and my face was bloody, and I I was just I could barely stand, and he took pictures of me. And this was back when I was 17. I'm like 48 now, so this was a long time ago.
And it's still
Um,
affecting you.
well, yeah, it does.
Yeah. Right. They're a
But
virus. Yeah.
right, but he took Polaroids of me and he hung them up on the hallway wall upstairs, and then he made me stand there all bloody and beaten up and made me strip naked and stand there and stare at those pictures
Oh my God.
so that I could see what I made him do to me.
Oh my. No,
So,
I had no idea. That is horrible.
yeah, but and I ended up getting away from him. It took me 8 years to finally realize, and this is right after I heard him planning my death, um, that I wasn't even safe sleeping in my own bed. You know, that I didn't have a life, and as long as I was with him, I wouldn't have a life. And so I started sneaking out and walking down to the police station while he was at work and talking to a rape crisis counselor because he would also rape me. I didn't want to have sex with him because he had been cheating
Hold
on me
on one
as
second, Kels. What is that beeping noise? If you're in a car or something, can you mute yourself until it's time for you to talk because it's going to affect the replay? Thank you. Okay, go ahead, Kels.
So I started sneaking off to the police department when he was at work, and I started talking to a rape crisis counselor. And um, then she set me to talk to somebody else who was a victims of violent crimes counselor. And together, these two women helped me make a plan to get out of there. And I did. I got out of there, and it was really terrifying because I had no job. He disabled my car. I couldn't drive my car anymore. Didn't even have it to live in, and my family. He had caused a lot of fights with my family, and of course, I took his side because I didn't know what he was doing, and he was my husband. And so I finally, got back in touch with my family and they helped me. But the next 3 years were hell because he kept stalking me everywhere. And he was calling my jobs. I switched jobs 3 or 4 times. He had other people following me. He was leaving things in the parking lot like dead roses and boxes, like huge refrigerator size boxes that had vulgar things written on them. And it was really humiliating, but finally he violated the restraining order one time too many, and they did haul him away. And then I don't know, I went into hiding. I lived all over the US, all different places, Canada, Mexico, because I was terrified. Um, and now I'm over in a different country, and sometimes all these years later, I see somebody that looks like him, and
Yeah,
I freeze.
yeah.
And so it never quite leaves your brain, you know?
It reminds me of that movie with Julia Roberts, where she was married to that man, and oh, what was the name of that movie? But when she finally got away, every time she looked over her shoulder, she thought that she saw him. Oh, that must be. But let me ask you a question, Charles. Are you in a better situation now? Even though
Oh,
you
hell
uh,
yes.
okay, so you're well away from that. You're in a good situation. Are
Yeah,
you married now?
yes, I am.
Okay, so
And
you're happily married to a person that is not a narcissist at this point, right?
right, no, he is exactly like me.
Okay. Oh, that's it. Sleeping with the Enemy. Thank you, Kit Kat. That's the movie you're reminding me of, and that is really scary.
It is, and it's what's really horrible is a lot of other things happen though that I don't want to talk about them, but it's when I look in the mirror, I see scars on my face, I see scars
Mm.
on my body from him, and there was just so much more to this what he did that I'm willing to actually share, but because I don't want to cry. but
No, no, I don't blame you. I don't blame you.
But yeah, that's a hard lesson to learn when you're that young, you know? And, um, I've
It's a
just kind of
horrible lesson. It's a horrible lesson to have to learn when you're 17 years old. That's
yeah,
horrible because that can damage you for life.
yeah, and to be honest with you, back then, I never heard the word narcissist before.
No, either did
Never.
I. Either did I.
So, um, but yeah, no, I'm fine. That was like I said, that was when I was 17, 8 years I lived with him, and then 3 years after that, he stalked me, and so I did not actually even try to get into a relationship or marry anyone until I knew exactly what I wanted. And then I just held out until I got what I wanted.
Yeah, well, you heard what
And
HG said. If you get out of the relationship with a narc, that you should, I think he said, don't even start dating for at least 6 months. Don't go to online dating. He said there are more narcissists now on this earth than ever. And not that there weren't probably narcissists for, since the beginning of time. It's just that we didn't know what they were. We didn't know how to identify them. We just thought some of these men, women, mothers. Listen, when I was in high school, and it was the only time I've ever heard the word narcissist. Years later, I reconnected with this woman on Facebook, and her mother had died. And she told me my mother was a narcissist. She made my existence, my life miserable. When she died, she didn't go to her funeral. And I didn't get it. I was like, what? I didn't even know what a narcissist was. Now I understand. And now I understand why she had no feeling and that she was happy. She was actually happy that her mother was no longer on this earth.
Well, that's why they say knowledge is power. I had no idea what I was dealing with. I just continued with life.
And
did the
Diane,
best I could.
I mean, I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for you having this man on, even though he terrifies me.
No, I get it.
Yeah,
So
me too.
that is so helpful to so many people out there who don't know. And it's going to save a lot of people. It really is.
Mhm.
Well, I hope so. I mean, we were all, we only had, listen, we could have probably gone on with him for 5 hours. But he does have a lot of really excellent resources out there to help everyone. Again, I don't, I didn't want to get too personal with him because I didn't think it's my place. I don't know why he's doing it, but obviously, like I said, he's written many books to help everyone. He will answer your questions on his blog. So in a way, he is doing a service as a narcissist to help other people prevent themselves from getting in a relationship with a narcissist, because obviously you heard what he said. He doesn't care. He doesn't love. He doesn't even have love for an animal. So for me, looking at him, I would think, what a miserable existence. But for him, it's not. That's the way he lives. And it doesn't bother him. I have empathy for him because he sounds like, of course, he sounds like a well-educated, charming man, but I know that he's what he is, but I still have empathy for him.
Right.
Well, that's the difficult part of me for healing, is to face the reality that he never loved me.
No, he didn't. He didn't love you.
That's difficult to deal with.
And when you spend a lot of years with someone,
my life,
you feel like you were completely duped, like you were an idiot, because he was such a charming, I tell you what, he was like a god to me for that until I married him, until I was under his complete total control.
And it's funny when you mention the disappearance of things. I just have to say this one thing. He would take a lot of my favorite things and they would disappear. Like you said, you could go a lot more in depth. But this one particular thing, we used to go to Halloween parties and I had this beautiful costume. He was Zorro and it was from the movie. So I had a beautiful dress, like from the movie with Banderas, and I loved this costume. And as soon as the next day I cleaned our costumes, I couldn't find mine. And I'm going, where's my costume? I can't find my costume anywhere. Oh, you must have put it somewhere. I says, where can I put it? I said, I put it with yours. 10 years later, when I'm selling the big house that my kids were devastated, I didn't leave the washer and dryer because I had the high-end Neptunes. So I wasn't leaving those in the house. Behind the washing machine, in a little bowl, was my beautiful Halloween dress from 10 years ago that he wrapped up in a little plastic bag and stuck way behind the washing machine. I would have never found that. When I saw that, going through divorce, packing a tremendous house of 27 years or 28 years of stuff in it, attic full. I mean, I can't even describe. When I saw that, oh my God, I was like.
Well, I'll tell you the effect that part has had on me, the gaslighting, the hiding the things, the moving shit around where it's not.
Oh, yeah, mine did it constantly.
It has caused me to be OCD, where everything has a place in my home and I know exactly where it is. And if somebody moves it, they get yelled at. And even my purse, I have a little tiny purse organizer, which is just another little bag with a bunch of pockets that sits inside my purse, because I'm that anal. So I have a bag inside of my bag to keep all the stuff in my bag, organized. And it's really bad. It's really bad. If I can't find stuff, I freak out now. I panic.
Did you go to therapy at all after this, or
I
at any
did.
time?
Yes. I did, yes. But you know what really disheartened me through this whole thing is because I thought, I mean, he was brainwashing me into believing that I caused him to do this stuff to me. And somewhere in the back of my head, I thought, no, this isn't right. And my friend, I did make a friend in the housing place where we lived, in the neighborhood where we lived. And she said, why don't you come to church with me? So he was off at work. I snuck off with her to church, and I went and talked to a pastor there and told him, basically, this is what's happening to me. What should I do? And is there any help here for me? And this guy told me that I needed to go back to my husband and bring him to Jesus.
Oh
And
boy.
I said, are you kidding me? I said, are you telling me Jesus wants me to get my ass kicked? I mean, I couldn't believe it. And I started screaming this stuff at him, and I fell apart.
Yeah, understandably so.
I swear Shells and I were married to the same man. I went through a lot of this such similar circumstances. I was 17, he was 25. The disappearing of things. My ex would have me wait on his children and him hand and foot at dinner time, and I would turn my back and I would come, they'd send me to the kitchen for something, and I would come back and my hot dog would be gone. Like, where's my hot dog? Well, you never put one on your plate. Yes, I did. I distinctly remember. No, you're crazy. You never put one on your plate.
Good night, Karen. I'm sorry if I'm, it was hard for me tonight to, interact with the chat because I wanted him to be able to answer everything as fully and as knowledgeable as he can and give you guys the answer. So I didn't want to interrupt him. I think I was afraid to interrupt him. No, I'm just kidding. I wasn't. But can I just say something? Can I just say something? What I wanted to ask him, and I never got a chance to ask him this. Aren't there just some men that might not be narcissists, but they're just abusive men? Because
yes.
Because and I wanted to ask him that because I feel like I don't want people to think that every man that is a shithead or treats you like garbage or might be verbally abusive
That's
or
right.
might be physically abusive necessarily is a narcissist. Because my ex-husband used to do some creepy things, like when he had a very bad temper. So if he got mad at me, instead of just talking to me or yelling at me, he would take something of mine that he knew I loved and break it. He was a smasher, but I don't think he was a narcissist. I just think that he had a really bad temper and he was a shithead. So that's what I wanted to ask. If, how do you determine if they're just a shithead or a narcissist?
Well, Dana, can you elaborate on this? There's different levels of narcissists, correct?
I can't. I can't let any more people on. You're only allowed to have 6 on here. Kim.
There's a spectrum. There's an absolute spectrum. So all of us, guys, I've been off YouTube. I actually took my channel down, but I'm literally still at work, but I'm not seeing anybody anymore. So I'll just give my sort of my knowledge about narcissists. You have met, all of us have known narcissists in our lifetime, though we haven't known it necessarily because they are con artists. They become very, very grand at fooling everybody. And there is a spectrum of narcissism. I hope you guys can hear me. I don't have my headphones on. I'm at work.
We can hear you.
But for the most part, all of us jump into narcissism from time to time. It's part of the human condition. When we're teenagers, we are narcissistic. We really only understand our own feelings. So that doesn't mean we don't have compassion. It just means that we're really kind of everything that goes on in our world is the most
Good
important
night,
thing.
Kat. Thank you so much for being here. And I will talk to you tomorrow, as promised. Thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
And anyway, so there's different stages of life and different times in our life that we go back into more of a narcissistic way of being. That said, there's narcissism and there's antisocial behavior.
Exactly.
And they're similar, but they're different. It's like one is a cliff and one is I don't even know. This is a bad example, but one is absolute terror and devastation and evil. Antisocial personality disorder, which we say sociopath or psychopath, they're both the same. They're part of that spectrum. Is pure evil. It has those people see other human beings as simply objects, and sometimes we need objects, right? Sometimes we know we need other people. Sociopaths, psychopaths, antisocial personality need other people when they need them, and when they don't, they get rid of them. Narcissists are not nearly as severe. Narcissists are actually capable of feeling for other people, but not in the way that people who are emotionally emotionally in a good place are able to have compassion. They don't feel as bad as most of us do. So that said, it's when people are narcissistic, the core of them, and this is confusing because they come, we know the story of Narcissus. He looks in the water and he falls in love with his own image and he drowns by his own image. That's the Greek.
The people in the chat, can I just say this? Listen, if we're getting whether you like somebody that's on panel or not, if they have something worthwhile to contribute, we just give them that platform instead of saying I'm leaving? Because that's being unfair to me, really, because this is my chat. I mean, really, just let someone speak. Go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, actually, initially, when I was going to go on YouTube, it was really kind of to talk about my knowledge, but I'm not doing therapy on here. But I do have, that's my profession, so I'm going to talk about what I know about. If I were a firefighter, I'd talk about fires, but I'm not. However, that said, so narcissists do feel connections to other people. There is a spectrum. Some narcissists will say, I don't have compassion. The woman from Ireland, I can't read your name, but your husband, I'm going to say, sounds more sociopathic. I mean, he just sounds cruel for cruelty's sake. Narcissist.
Well, he was actually very controlling as well.
Yes.
Right down to what I dressed, how I dressed, what I did with my hair, where I went. I would be timed when he allowed me to go to the grocery store. I mean, it was very, very controlled as well as
right.
all the alienation.
It could be the control in and of itself could be either or, but the cruelty that he, engaged with you, it comes across more sociopathic, more right. Antisocial. A narcissist comes from a place, and this is really confusing because we see them looking in mirrors all the time and buying Ferraris and, getting all sorts of look at me, look at me, look at me, because they come from a place of not feeling good about themselves ever, unless they get accolades and adoration from other people all the time.
Would that explain why I was, showered with gifts and new furniture and new cars, even though ultimately I wasn't allowed to use the car?
Yes.
But I was
so
showered
that's
with
a love bombing stage.
Appearances were very important.
Appearances are everything. And the reason being is if you feel empty inside and you're not worthy of winning the love of another person just by being you, just by letting your hair down and going, hey, it's me. It's so good to meet you. I'm crazy about you. Instead, they grandstand. And because they do not feel by themselves worthy of love. And so they put on an entire rock show of look at me. Oh my God, I love you. You're never going to be loved like this. I'm the best person that's ever fallen into your life, and you're going to have such an experience. So that's what the love bombing comes from, a feeling of not being worthy. And so because they don't feel worthy, some people who don't feel worthy just climb under a rock. Narcissists climb out of the rock and say, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me, look at me. Am I okay now? Am I okay now? Look at me. Look at me. Look how amazing I am. I own a Ferrari. Look how amazing I am. I have, I'm the prettiest girl in the room. Look how amazing, but I'm not really ever feeling amazing. I feel beneath at all times.
I have a question about that. So my ordeal, he wooed me for over a year and a half. He kept that up. Is that typical? Is that typical?
Yeah, it's one of the absolute steps of narcissism. It's one of the ways you recognize it initially. It's so what happens for people who are not the narcissist in the relationship is they feel like, oh my God, I've never been loved like this before. And this is what I understand it to be, because he cares about only me, or she cares about only me. They're so invested in every fiber of my being that I didn't even know what love was before this. And by the way, the person who's being love bombed by the narcissist starts to feel like they require it. Like, if I don't have that incredible love bombing, then I'm not loved. And it's a confusion, and it's a misunderstanding. And it becomes, the narcissist himself or herself becomes a drug often. That high that we get when we're around people who love bomb us, then many of us start to think, I can't be okay without the love bombing. It's unconscious goings on, dynamics, but it's very, very real. And like heroin, like people who are addicted to drugs, they get that high and don't feel that they can be okay without the high. And so they go back and get more. And so if you're married to or in a relationship with a narcissist, you go back and get more. You seek it until you get that approval. And you get intermittent approval from a narcissist all the time.
He stripped me. Looking back, I can clearly see how he stripped me of my dignity, my pride, my confidence, everything that a young woman should have, he took from me. And I didn't even realize it was happening until it was too late, And then by that time, I was so isolated. I had no money. I had no control over anything. Couldn't even go drive my own car. And then I just felt trapped. And
yes, and you were trapped. You were.
Yeah, and so
you were not by your own doing. You didn't. Many of us do not. I was in a relationship with a narcissist. I was also raised by one, and I adored my mother. I mean, I tremendously adored her, and I dreamed. She passed away in 2012, and I miss her terribly. But when I dream about her, which is often, they're dark. They're dark dreams, where she's being cruel and I'm confused, which is what happened a lot in my relationship with my mother. And I married a man who was similar, this kind of intermittent approval. Like, you're good, Dana. You're good. You're good. You're the best ever. You're the best thing that ever happened. And the next day I'd be ignored. And the next day after that. And the next day after that. So I would wait to be loved again, as though that's how love really works. And it isn't. Love is pure. It doesn't go away. Narcissists do not provide love in the healthy way that is eternal. It's day by day by day. And if I get upset with something you've done, I don't stop loving you. But a narcissist does, because they don't have self-love. And if you've angered them, they pull their love away from you.
Okay, Dana, I just want to let Beautiful Soul, you still here?
Diane, I'm going to jump off because I know there's other people that probably are waiting.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say,
I'm here.
I just wanted to say thank you so much for doing this. And
you're welcome. You're welcome.
Everyone in the chat who has been so supportive. I I finally was able to pop out my chat there. So thank you all for just being so supportive and loving. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, and I want to say thank you for coming up and telling your story. I mean, it really had my heart jumping, but I'm so happy that you're happy now and everything's okay. But it appears to me you still have triggers and like maybe PTSD. I mean, I'm not a
Mhm.
psychiatrist or anything, but I think you still need to see a therapist now and then for this. That's just my opinion, dear.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I'm happy that Shells is now.
I'm happy she's happy now. Yes.
Yeah.
She's in a happy
Shells.
relationship. I think she should just concentrate. Listen, I mean, I'm not a therapist, but you know, we need to leave that up to Shells. If she's
Yeah.
happy, just
Yes.
you know, stay away from triggering situations. If you're
Yes.
in a good relationship, then that's all you should be thinking about. Don't look back
Right.
and just be happy as you are now. And I understand that this was triggering for you, and I get it. But you know, I'm happy that you were able to come up here and share your story. I didn't know all this. You know, I really
That's the courage.
yeah.
Shells.
I don't.
I just
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
I just wanted to say to you, Shells, the one thing, since we have like a really similar, it's eerily similar connection storyline. One of the things that helps me considerably is reminding myself that I am a survivor. I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. It helps tremendously. Every day you wake up and just say, I survived it. I'm safe now. It really does help.
Thank you for that. Yeah. I don't really think about it that often. It's just sometimes I'll be looking in the mirror and I'll see a scar on my face, or if something's misplaced.
Hmm.
There's those
Mhm.
two things that
You get
trigger
that
me
panic.
sometimes.
You get that panic. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
But then
Yeah,
I come to my senses and I remember where I am. I'm, 5,000 miles away across an ocean, and I have the best husband on earth that I could ever have wished for. And I have a loving family here, 3 amazing boys, and
wow.
life
Wonderful.
is wonderful now. So
Well, God bless you.
thank you. And Diane, again, thank you so much. Chat, I see you guys. I love you, Ashley and Kimberly, and everybody, Zigzag, all of you. And thank you so much for having me on.
No problem. Thank you for sharing your story, Shells. I know it must have been difficult for you, but again, I'm so happy for you that you're happy now. And that's all that really matters.
Oh, thank you so much. And all right, I'm gonna jump off here because it's pretty late. I need
I
some sleep.
know. I know.
All right, bye everybody.
All right.
Bye,
Take
honey.
care, Shells. Beautiful soul. I muted you before because there were some sounds that were interfering with the chat. You need to unmute yourself.
Diane, I'm gonna excuse me, I'm gonna jump off, but thanks for having me on. And
Okay, Shannon, no, I appreciate you giving us, some of your input on, from being a therapist and understanding,
I do want to reiterate, I was looking at chat and I do want to reiterate, this is like a common core belief, is that narcissists love themselves. They really don't. They want to, and they'll do anything to get that kind of good feeling that comes from self-love, but they're unable to get it, and it's a constant sort of stealing from others. Look at me, looking in the mirror, look at my Ferrari, so on and so forth. But self-love is not. It's a farce, and they don't have self-love, and they are capable of loving. They're not sociopaths, but they don't love the way healthy people do. So I just wanted to kind of reiterate that. Okay, thanks a bunch.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dana. Oh, we lost Blonde.
Oh no.
Thank you, Dana.
We lost
Thank
her.
you, Dana.
Thanks a bunch.
I wanted
Yeah.
to hear what Beautiful Soul. I'm sorry, Beautiful Soul. What happened to you? Here's the link again because I do want to hear what you had to say. You jumped on earlier, but Yeah, I do want, and if anyone else wants to contribute anything, I'm not going to be on for much longer though, because it's been 2 hours and I'm kind of tired. So I don't know if you're still here, but I dropped a link for you again if you want to hop on.
I kind of wanted to add on to what Dana was saying about that love bombing. A universal trait that all narcs have is the building you up so they can tear you down.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's universal. Now, my ex-husband, he had a level of narcissism and he was extremely abusive. So I have scars on my body as well. The day I left him, I left on a stretcher. However, I left him, I filed for divorce, and Mr. Tudor was saying, whatever you do, don't date for at least 6 months, especially internet dating.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
I made the mistake of leaving my ex-husband, filing for a divorce, feeling great, getting my life back, and I met my son's father. And now my son's father was never violent, physically violent, like my ex-husband. But he is far more worse with his narcissism. It's like when narcs get out of a relationship, they look for their next victim, sort of speak. And if you're coming out of an abusive narcissistic relationship, you have to be very aware that you're going to attract the next narc.
Well, HD Tudor said that sometimes it's
Yeah.
not even. It could be a matter of they're already in the sideline. Their next person.
Exactly. I missed the first part of your show, but yeah, I have since, I'm completely no contact with my son's father. Completely. I've been no contact for a year now. The last words I said to him were, I know what you are. And if looks could kill, I would have dropped right on the spot. Because he knew what I meant by that statement.
Right.
Therapy is very important coming out of a narcissistic abusive relationship. I
don't know what I would have done if I didn't have a therapist in place. Like I said, I thought it was a midlife crisis.
Mm-hmm.
Let's get a therapist so we could see how this marriage is going to go to chapter 3 as complete empty nesters.
Mm-hmm.
And it turned out it was a whole different matter. But if I didn't have that therapist in place, I was ready to pack a bag and go to the hospital and say, I will be having a nervous breakdown like now, or I am, and send me somewhere.
Oh yeah, they're very satisfied if they send you to that brink. Well, that gives them a great deal of satisfaction.
I was very strong. Let me tell you, I put up I was very, very strong. But when he left, I would break, like in court and with the lawyers and everything else. I was strong. I was professional. But, I broke on my own. I cried on my own pillow.
The one thing about, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Here's what I think that people who are still suffering need to do. And, I'm not his publicist, but I really think that you need to go to his blog. I think you need to go to his books or even go to his YouTube channel, because he talks a lot about what narcissists will do. They don't care if they put you to the brink of being hospitalized. They don't care. So everybody has to understand that they don't care.
They don't care at all, period. They haven't
got
what
it does is it gives them a great deal of satisfaction, because all the while that they're building you up or trying to reassure you, they're behind the scenes smearing you. They smear campaign.
That's a big part of it, the smear campaign. It's hard to live that down. But you know what
the great thing about having,
because nobody could believe it. Everybody loved him, and everywhere he went, he bragged about me. And like I said, I hid everything from the children. I was really good with handling him. And, nobody could believe it. I mean, I had my girlfriends and family were in state of shock. So who's the crazy one? I
Yeah.
must be the crazy one.
Yeah,
He's
you're
such a great
crazy.
guy.
Yeah, my
she
son's
must be
father
crazy.
actually runs a community theater. He's an actor and a director.
Mhm.
And
Oh,
you
hold on
know,
1 second, Sarah. Miss ATX, you said, I think Beautiful Soul might have been the lady from the channel Narcaway. Really?
oh really? Where'd she go?
No.
I
But I
watched
just
that
want to
channel.
say, Sarah, real quick, what I did was I just did a lot of praying,
Hmm.
and I haven't dated yet. Hey, I'm single for 3-4 years now. You know, from the day I said goodbye and divorced, and I'm not dating. Hell no. I mean, I'll go out dancing, you know, go out with a couple of friends because you have to socialize. But
Oh yeah, it's
I'm
been
not
quite a
taking a
while
chance
for
with
me too.
I'm not
I'm
taking a
kind of
chance with
over
another man.
it.
Yeah, no, I'm not taking a chance with another man. I'm very happy and content. I didn't think I'd be content alone because I've, you know, always had family around me, the kids and him, and
Yeah. The
so it's
one
a
great thing about having a therapist, to have, you know, as support, one of the great reasons for having that therapist is when you start getting nostalgic, especially if you were married to the narc or had children with the narc. It's really easy for the narc to be able to reel you back in using nostalgia, you know, or convincing you have an obligation to your children to have that narc be in your life. That was my son's father's tool that he used. You know, well, what about our son? Don't you care about what's best for our son? And that worked for a very long time. And it got to the point, even though we were broken up, he was married to another woman, had a child with another woman. He controlled my house, my finances, my social life, up to and including I was their child's babysitter for free for 3 years.
Well, you see, let me tell you, I could have ended my marriage and left my husband when the kids were in high school, but I didn't want to wreck their lives. I didn't want to wreck their futures.
Exactly.
Both of my children are highly successful. They make tremendous money, and they're on solid ground now. In fact, they even go to the therapist with me once in a while. I see my therapist on an as needed basis at this point, and she's an excellent woman. And what she gave me was validation. Okay.
Question for you, because my son just turned 18 and he lives in his father's home. And my son wears his little heart on his sleeve. He is such a loving, kind, thoughtful young man, and I'm terrified for him because there's certain things that have been going on where it's very obvious his father's getting his clutches in to maintain control over this legal adult, because he's a legal adult now. You said you could have left when your kids were teenagers. How old were they when you did leave, and were they aware?
My children were in there. My son was married with 3 kids already.
Oh,
and
okay.
My daughter, unfortunately, it was her engagement period and graduation from college. But, you know, I couldn't wait any longer. It had to end. You know what? Because I couldn't live no more this way.
Yeah.
I mean, I said, so, let me tell you something. He did not want to leave. He did not want a divorce. How could we throw 36, 35 years away? And then plus you got to add the 2.5 years we dated. And
were
then,
your
you know,
children aware that something was
no, absolutely
off with
not.
that?
No, I was very good at hiding everything. You know, I told them once we started having kids, listen, if we're going to have an argument or disagreement, when the kids go to sleep, we'll go sit in the car and talk.
Yeah,
I'm kind of
in an awkward position right now because, you know, I've since left therapy.
Don't get me wrong. We did have some arguments in front of the kids. Don't get me wrong.
Okay.
But it was not the below the belt type, the kind you have when you're home alone.
Yeah, because my son came to me recently with YouTube in his hand.
Yeah.
And he says, Mom, I got a question for you. And I go, yeah, honey, what's that? And he goes, is my dad a narcissist? He had been watching narcissist videos on YouTube. And he asked me, is my dad a narcissist?
So in other
And
words, you have an 18-year-old and you're sharing custody, you and your ex-husband with your 18-year-old.
yeah, the ex, yeah.
The thing is, 18 years is such a pivotal age. It
I
can go
know.
either way. I mean, this
know.
kid could do something great or wind up in big trouble.
Yeah.
Is he in school? How's his grades?
Oh, terrible. His grades have been horrible for
Well, there's a
years. He's
problem
in a
right there. I mean,
yeah, I know. And
he
I'm
needs some
trying to
tutoring, needs some motivation for education. I always instilled education, education, education. I'm doing that with my grandson, and he's in the President Dean's role, honor roll now.
yeah, the thing is he lives, yes.
Sarah, why don't you, like I said, I put the links to everything in my description. Why don't you go to his website, to his blog? You can ask questions there, he'll answer them. Or
Yeah.
why not listen, I can't even tell you how much information he has. He has a YouTube channel. He has the Amazon books. I think both you ladies, I know that you're out of your marriage, Lee, but I think that you're both still, going through something and I'm not sure that either one of you can help each other. I think that you need, a professional who's a narcissist to help you.
No, I was just curious if at least her children were aware.
Well,
she said everybody else thought he was the greatest guy in the world. I was just wondering if the children.
So did my
yeah,
children.
I didn't know. Yeah, my son has an awareness. I was just curious.
Well, then I would suggest, first of all, education is everything. He's got to concentrate on school.
Yeah, I know. I keep reiterating that to him.
Get him to the college and start taking some pre-college classes. Get him into activities, sports, something. He's got to get busy. That's all I can say.
Yeah, I mean.
Yeah, absolutely, and I do agree with that.
That seems like the worst part about it is, the wreckage that a narcissist leaves behind. But again, you heard what, HG said. They don't care.
Yeah. No contact's the best. It really is.
The thing is, to my own fault, I was obsessed with making sure my children didn't get affected. I was obsessed with my children and their future and their education. I was obsessed because I really should have left them when the kids were in high school. But then what would have happened to my kids? They would have never been successful. I know it.
Well, I think a part of me lied to myself thinking, well, as long as I allow this man to control me, he won't shift that attention to my son. And a year ago, I went completely no contact with my son's dad. And it seems that because I don't react to anything he says or does. And believe me, he's on a hardcore smear campaign, especially with our son right now.
All I could say is it must be so difficult.
It seems he's shifted. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I can't even imagine having my children in their teens and going through what you're going through.
Yeah, I know. And I'm kind of stuck because I'm low income. I can't afford to get my son his own therapy. He's 18.
And my ex was sweet, mean cycle. So he'd be, 2-3 weeks, he'd be wonderful. And for a week, he'd be rotten. And then for 2 weeks, he'd be nice. And for 3 weeks, he'd be rotten. So I just got more. And plus, don't forget, I had a career. I worked a lot and busy with the kids and all. So I just concentrated on my kids. And the time came, the kids were successful. It was time to, that's it. It's now I can't live like this anymore.
Yeah.
I'm going to go insane. And then as far as the smear campaign goes, yes, that I find that happens. I just said, put it in God's hands, sit back. I know what I am. I know the kind of woman I am. It is what it is. And boom, everybody coddled around me and they started remembering little things here and there.
That's a hindsight is 2020 thing.
Yeah. Gee, Mom, I remember this. I remember that. And my children adore me. There's nothing wrong with me. I'm in complete health. And my therapist, I'm not bragging here, told me I don't even have not even a 0.0001% of narcissism. So no, I don't. I don't have a drop of it. They say everybody has some. I don't have any. I don't think Diane has a drop of it either.
Oh no, I don't. I was called a narcissist recently by someone. I am the polar opposite of a narcissist. Sorry.
Absolutely.
But anyway, listen, guys, I'm going to have to wrap this up.
Thank
Yeah.
you so much for having me, Diane.
No
And I hope I was
maybe,
helpful.
maybe you and Sarah could, hook up off of here and talk about your situation.
Well, yeah, definitely. And I'm definitely going to go to HG Tudor's
I've
site.
seen every single one of his videos, and then get the book from Sam Vatkin.
Yeah, I usually watch Angie Atkinson.
Mhm. I'm not crazy for her. She talks too fast,
Yeah, this is the first like real time I was able to listen to HD Tudor. I've seen a couple of his videos, but
listen on my channel, which I don't have a channel, but if you hit my picture, I have one of his videos that really impact, because I've seen every one of his videos. But
can I ask a quick question? Because I came in late.
Diane's exhausted. I'm exhausted.
I know. I just wanted to know really quick, because I came in late when he was on panel.
Yeah.
Why does he do this? Does he do this because
all they want is control and fuel? Period. End of story. They can't feel love. They have
I mean him. Why does he want to educate when he's a narcissist?
Yeah.
What is his motivation? Is it because he's in therapy and he's learned to care?
No, he's in therapy because he was forced to be in therapy. But this is his business.
I'm just curious. Yeah, I was just curious what his motivation was to be an educator.
Well, Sam Vatkin is another well-known narcissist that had to go see a therapist, and he's got books and he's got videos, and he pretty much started, or he's the one that actually came up with this whole thing of this narcissism and the different types.
I was just curious if maybe they had some kind of therapy that worked for them, where they.
No, therapy doesn't work for a narcissist. No. It can never be cured.
Okay.
No, it can't be cured. But again, Sarah, seriously.
Most narcissists, unlike him, most narcissists, listen, when you go into a therapist's office, you can mirror anybody. So that's what narcissists do. So they walk into a therapist's office and they just mirror them and they give them what they want. Do you think that the therapist that he's going to really believes that they're going to help this person? They know that he has narcissistic personality disorder, and he's a psychopath.
Whoa! I didn't know he was a psychopath too.
Yes, he's a psychopath.
Wow. Okay.
So no, he's never going to be cured. He said it a million times, but he is giving knowledgeable information on his blog.
Yeah.
He has over 1 million hits on there. He said he's answered over 30,000 questions. He is helping people, whether he's not getting the same kind of satisfaction that a normal person would get out of helping somebody. He is getting what he needs. And he's very blunt. I've looked at his blog. People try to mess with him because he is a narcissist, but you can't fool a narcissist. You can't do one up on them. It just doesn't.
The thing is, and you, Diane, and you, excuse me, darling, you can't win and don't ask why. I've learned that.
No, you can't win. No, no being there. It's he seems to be from the UK. But again, everything is in my description.
Okay, great. I'll check it out, Diane. Thank you.
Diane, I can't thank you enough for having me up on panel and for having HG Tudor up. I can't even thank. I'll be forever grateful. Thank you so much.
No problem. Listen,
I love your channel. I tell everyone about it. Did you ever hear the story when I had the appliance guy here? I said on a panel, and I had you on the TV. You were on the phone in my office. The phone here. My appliance guy is going, "Who's that? What's that?" I go, "That's Diane's channel." He goes, "Oh my goodness." I go, "Well, I'm not shutting it. Are you okay?" He had to fix my appliance. And then he goes, all of a sudden, "Boy, this is sounding interesting." I said, "Okay, I'll give you one of the phones." I put one of the phones in the appliance room, and he says, "I'm going to sub to this channel. This is really good." I go, "I'm telling you, can't miss ladies' night." So I tell everyone about your channel. And Sarah, another thing for your 18-year-old, have him tutor younger children. Education, get him involved in things. So he can't be around his father that much.
Yeah, I know. That's what I'm working on that. I'm working on, distances.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's what you need to concentrate on. That's just my opinion. I'm a grandmother now, so I think I can give some opinions.
Oh yeah.
Anyway,
I'll take it.
Diane, I
I'll
love
take
you.
them.
You're marvelous. I hope Wendy gets better. Send her my regards. I feel bad.
I
Randy
will.
wasn't
I will.
here. And again, thank you. And Sarah, we will speak again. And thank you
Okay,
so
honey.
much,
You should.
everyone in the
Yes,
chat. God bless you all.
Okay, God
Thank
bless
you.
you too. Thank you, Lee. You two should really get together.
One last plug. If you need to shop Amazon, click Diane's link. Okay.
Oh, I didn't even put my links out tonight. Well, I'll do that on Ladies' Night. There was
Okay,
so
great.
much to get to tonight, and I only had an hour and a half with him, so I wanted to get
Okay.
questions in as possible. So
Well,
we'll
thanks for having me up, and thanks for having him on. Seriously, I'll
you're,
check out his site.
you're welcome. Good night, Sarah.
Okay. Good night, honey.
Okay,
Bye.
bye. All right, thank you everyone who came tonight. Thank you everyone for hanging out. I hope that if you missed the beginning, you can see it on the replay. I think he gave us some wonderful answers, some valuable information for people. Listen, I did not know how deep narcissism went. I did not know, I really didn't know how it can destroy people's lives. It can make them sick. I didn't know because I've been fortunate. After I learned, like I said, after I learned what a narcissist was, I had to go back into my life and say, did I ever know anyone who was a narcissist? Did I ever have a narcissist in my life? And I haven't. So I've been really blessed. But in the beginning, I don't know if you guys, some of you guys might not know this, but in the beginning, I couldn't get him on. I couldn't get him onto StreamYard. It wasn't connecting. I started panicking. And it was crazy. I said, what if I can't get him on? But it worked out because I'm high strung, and that's what happens to me. I get very high strung, and I'm like, no, he has to come on. All right. So again, thank you everyone for coming, and we will, I don't know, maybe in the future we'll do another panel. Maybe we'll get him to come up again for something else, and we'll maybe stick to one particular topic of narcissism. Maybe he would allow some of the women to come up and actually speak with him. Maybe we'll do that in the future. So other than that, I love you all. See you Friday night for Ladies' Night. We're still going to talk about, because we need to get some of those Valentine cards sent in for the mystery box giveaway, Jeffree Star. And that's it. And I don't know, I don't know if I'm going to be live again. I might be live again this week with someone else, but I don't have to talk about that here. Anyway, good night, everyone. Love you all. Thank you for coming.